Good. Okay, welcome everybody. I'd like to call to order the January 24th, 2024 Lower Saucon Township Special Council meeting. And I have a new mic, so if anybody can't hear any of us up here, just raise your hand in the back of the room and let us know. So I hope this is better. So may we have a roll call, please?
Ms. DeLeon?
Here.
Mr. Bononis?
Here.
Mr. Croce?
Here.
Ms. Abdel-Kader?
Here.
Ms. Ray?
Here. Okay.
Everyone is here.
Okay, may we all stand and pledge the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm sorry.
The flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, council did not meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting, so there was no action needed. And I'd just like to mention in our code of conduct we have for public comment procedure, we also have administrative code, which section F, number 2, says, at all meetings of council, regular or special interested citizens with legitimate matters to lay before council shall be granted the right and privilege to address the council. The council may prescribe procedures for citizen presentations to ensure decorum at all times and to prohibit personal or insulting language, total irrelevances, and harassment, either on the part of members of council or members of the assembly at the meeting. And everyone should be familiar with Resolution 31-2024, which was passed on January 2nd, which establishes our guidelines for the meeting. And so please, if you have something to speak, we're opening it up under each agenda item. We only have one on the agenda tonight, so you'll be able to come up to the podium and please state your name for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak. So with that, I'd like to go into where's my papers? All right. Okay, so tonight.
Recognized, or Jay, do you want to be recognized?
Yeah, I may be recognized.
Well, it's kind of out of order, but why?
My questions may be
Elected
recognized.
official,
Yes
let him
or
be
no?
recognized.
All right, so we're now here at our 4th Lower Saucon Township Council meeting in as many weeks. It's the 4th installment of this clown show. We're now on to our 3rd solicitor in 3 weeks. 3 weeks, 3 solicitors. There is no agenda item here to accept the resignation of Mark Reed, Esquire. There's nothing to discuss today. It's my position that any action that's taken on Mr. Reed's letter and appointment of a new solicitor today is in violation of the Sunshine Law, because this has never been advertised. This has not been advertised where an agenda item is to accept the resignation of the solicitor pursuant to his letter. And unless and until there's an agenda item for accepting the solicitor's resignation letter and any action taken by this council, it's my position that it's a violation of Pennsylvania law. There's nothing to discuss tonight. It's plain and simple, and I'm making a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. I feel the same way, if I can be recognized.
Sure.
You need to accept a resignation, and you need to publicize that as an agenda item, accepting a resignation before you can appoint somebody to fill the resigned spot. I know that sounds pretty simple and pretty basic, but somehow it escaped the current majority of council and our township manager. So I think...
Victoria, would you like to comment, discussion on the motion that's on the floor?
Sure, I think we're within our legal bounds, and I'm happy to be here this evening, and I'm happy to move forward, and I'm happy to proceed.
Laura?
Yes, I would like to move
I can't
forward.
hear you.
I would like to move forward as well.
The other thing is the
You're
resignation
out of turn, Tom.
is
I also would like to say that I'd like to move forward, and with that, I'm going to open it up to I'm speaking right now. I'd like to open it up to the floor and have public comment. So you have 5 minutes. So who wants to go first?
May I ask where Mr. Reed is tonight? Does anybody know? Because his letter of resignation says that he was going to remain as the solicitor through the end of the month. It's not the end of the month. I think there's another 5 or 6 days left on his term of service to the township. So, Mark, can you answer that question? Where is our solicitor today?
He was not coming.
He's not coming.
No.
Okay. So he lasted a grand total of 16 days, said he was going to stay till the end of the month, and he's not here for this special meeting that was called.
Okay, again,
I'd like to be
I will call
recognized.
this
I have
meeting
a,
back to
I have a
order
certificate of-
again, and I will ask any resident that
Mr.
would like
Freed,
to
it was
come to the
17
podium
days.
to come up and speak, please.
17 days, 408 hours,
The podium is now
24,480 minutes.
over to Mr.
My name is Robert Blasco. I live at 2510 Reddington Road in Lower Saucon Township. Thank you for recognizing me, Madam President. Yeah, there is something that I'd like to bring up. Somebody said about a clown show. I find it ironic that the two people would concur are the ones that have caused this clown show. It was suggested at the last meeting by a certain individual that the rest of us, and rather indignantly, I might add, do some research. Well, I've done some research. How's this? Under ordinances, under administration of government, letter E, procedure, under council, rules of procedure, A, the council shall determine its own rules of procedure, not inconsistent with ordinance or statute. A majority of the whole number of members of the council shall constitute a quorum. So 3 out of 5 is a majority, 3 out of 5 is a quorum. There's no question, there's no confusion. And no ordinance or resolution shall be adopted by the council with the affirmative vote of a majority, in other words, the quorum of all the members of the council. Now, concerning under section F, meetings of council, number 2, at all meetings of the council, regular or special, interested citizens with legitimate matters to lay before the council shall be granted the right and privilege to address the council. The council may prescribe procedures for citizen presentation to ensure decorum at all times and to prohibit personal or insulting language, total irrelevances, and harassment. Imagine that. Either on the part, get this, of members of council or members of the assembly at the meeting. And what we witnessed at the last meeting was total harassment, period. And as Mr. Carochi admitted, saying to me before the meeting, go ahead, sit there and smirk. I hope you're enjoying it, because I am. I am going to enjoy it. Admitted, we're going to have fun at this meeting tonight. If you don't believe me, go back and look at the minutes when they come out. If they're not out already, it's there. Go back and watch the meeting recording. It also says on section 3, on a regular basis, time shall be provided for a citizens' forum or town meeting to be held at the beginning of the regularly scheduled council meetings. Such meetings shall be limited to 30 minutes duration. Additional time may be designated at the discretion of council. It didn't happen all last year that I know of. The council members under number 6 shall receive from the manager in advance of each meeting a detailed agenda of items to be considered. The council shall, however, have the right to take other action whether or not it appears on the agenda. Whether or not it appears. So if anything could be done about it, if there was an objection, it would be that a vote would be taken, not harass and harangue other members of council so that the meeting lasted 5.5 hours. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you,
Mr.
Bob.
President,
Anyone
Ms.
else?
President, may I ask Mr. Blasco for clarification?
Bob, he would like to ask you a question.
Mr. Blasco, you mentioned doing some research. I'm wondering, what research have you done to determine who decided to remove Link Treadwell as solicitor? What research have you done to identify who identified, consulted with, and appointed Mark Reed as the 16-day solicitor? And what information do you have that I personally knew of or was involved in either of those decisions?
Had nothing to do with what I just stated.
Sure it did, sir.
We're gonna have fun
So you
tonight,
have
too.
none. Thank you,
We'll
sir.
have fun tonight, too.
Next person, is there anyone else? Okay, go ahead.
I can sign up just so you know.
I am not even looking at the list.
No, I wasn't, unfortunately, I wasn't at the last meeting, so.
Record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Frank Palumbo, Kings Mill Road. I wasn't at the meeting last, but I heard it was horrendous. And so I was curious as to what occurred in terms of why the solicitor left. And I get, it sounds like it's a lot of solicitor changes, but the reality is we just got one new solicitor with the new council. And a couple of guys here want to make a big stink out of that deal. So I don't know what happened, so if somebody could just, I couldn't watch the video, I just couldn't make it, so.
I'll tell you.
I'm gonna
I'll
go
tell-
into
Can
the
I explain?
explanation.
I
was
can
gonna-
explain.
I'm have the
He was
floor at
asking
the
me.
moment.
He said something,
I
can
have-
someone?
I have the floor
All
at
right.
the
Well,
moment.
I'd like to say, for 23 years, we had a non-political solicitor. His name was Link Treadwell. He served both Republicans and Democrats, and he was effective. He kept the council out of a lot of legal peril and didn't play favorites or pick sides. What was brought in,
My
what was
question
brought
is,
in, the
why,
first
why
solicitor
did,
was brought in.
why did the solicitor leave? I'm
He
not
didn't
asking.
leave. They didn't reappoint him. He wasn't reappointed.
No, the
Mr.
new
Treadwell wasn't
solicitor,
reappointed.
the new solicitor, I want
Make
to
a
know why he
motion
left.
to
Okay,
move
so,
forward with our
I don't care
agenda
what
as
Link
stated,
did.
and,
That's not my question.
And this
I mean,
debate.
you'd have to ask him.
Two motions on the.
You'd have to ask him, but,
Well, the
but
council-
we hired a political, biased solicitor. Priscilla did it, on her own, didn't consult, anybody, to my knowledge. And, he was, in my opinion, horrendous during a conditional use hearing. Didn't know what he was doing. We had a
Okay,
conditional
we're
use
making
hearing.
derogatory remarks to
listen,
somebody.
I could
You're out of
I just-
order, Tom.
You can talk about
You are
somebody's
out of
competence.
order.
You can talk about somebody's
You are
competence.
out of order.
About somebody's
Again, you are
competence
out of
without
order.
being derogatory. It's
You
just
are
a
out
matter
of
fact.
order.
Have some decorum here, please.
Tom, you
Please
are
have
out
some
of
decorum.
order.
I'm
you are not
explaining.
being
You
rec-
asked the question. You asked the
You are
question.
not being recognized. I'm sorry.
This is becoming your
I'm sorry.
circus again, clown show.
Please continue.
No, my basic
Because we're
question
not
is,
supposed to be, we're not supposed to be doing this. Harassment, this person's not even here to defend himself.
Gentleman asked a question, he's answering the question.
Right.
You answer questions all the time.
Subjective. It's subjective.
Right, so-
I have the floor, you do not.
Correct, you
Remember
do.
how that worked?
I sure do.
Okay, well then.
But allow Mr. Carochi to finish speaking before you interrupt him, because this gentleman's asked him a question, he's responding to it.
Jay-
Recognize him.
Recognized.
Let me
Tell me
finish.
it's him.
I'm telling him he's done now.
Oh, I wasn't done. You cut me off. I wasn't
the
done.
question was, what happened to the last solicitor? And I'm not asking
In
about
my
Link.
opinion.
We'll get to
Okay,
that.
in my opinion-
Momentarily.
You looked at me and you asked me, in my opinion,
No, I didn't ask
he
you
couldn't
specifically. I'm
handle-
asking the council.
I'm part of the council.
Okay, but you're going down the path of Link, and I don't care
No,
about that.
no, you asked me again, what happened to our most recent solicitor? The one
Yes.
we had for 17 days. And I was telling you, in my opinion, he wasn't up to the task of holding a
Again,
conditional use hearing.
you're being defamatory. I can't.
Defamatory? It's
Yes,
my
you
opinion.
cannot do that. The man's not here to respond. And
I'm here by
You are
choice.
disobeying our
Here-
code of conduct and
by
our
choice.
administrative code.
He's not here by choice to defend himself. And Mr. Palumbo asked me what I thought happened, and that's what I thought happened. That's why he's not here. He resigned.
Okay, so we're moving on, so.
Correct inaccuracy
You know
from Mr.
what? No,
Carochi.
I'm not entertaining any more discussion. Okay? Okay, anyone else like to speak?
Ask-
Mark Ozimek. Mr. Gaduzian, welcome. Welcome to Lower Saucon Township. And I hope over the last year you've been watching what's going on. I would like to personally welcome you. I would like to see you stand up for the council and do what's best for the township of Lower Saucon Township. As you just witnessed, the clown show comes from two guys that don't know how to quit. and it never ends. I'm not sure what else I can say, but the township needs help. I hope God blesses you to be our help. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
We
If
had a
not, I'm gonna
complaint,
call
the solicitor, his
question.
name was
One
Link
more.
Treadwell.
Russ.
Russ Sutton, 2133 Saucon Avenue. Thank you for being here, sir. Then maybe you'll witness firsthand what we've witnessed for the last 4 years. The reason the other solicitor left is because Mr. Carochi and Mr. Bononis attacked at him at every point. I don't know how he'd even sit there and put up with that harassment. It was intolerable. The only good meeting we had is when the first meeting when you were elected, and it's been downhill ever since because these two won't allow things to happen because they're spoiled milk because they didn't win. They didn't get their people in, and they've been harassing everybody ever since because they didn't get what they want. And actually, they never followed their own directives about when to speak and when not to speak. You're constantly interrupting. Yeah, you should laugh because you're the one doing it all the time. You know, that's called a mental illness if you don't know. You have signs of schizophrenia, and the other one has signs of illusions of grandeur. So that's my take of it.
What happened to insults? What happened to personal insults?
That's a personal
What
attack.
happened
Now,
to
what are you
personal
gonna do about
insults,
that? Are you
Priscilla?
gonna enforce the
What
rules
happened
or
to
not?
personal insults?
saying
You
that
didn't
it was-
gavel them down.
To say that.
Oh, okay, it's wrong.
It's wrong.
Okay.
Oh, it's wrong.
It was wrong, but it was needed to be said.
What a clown show.
Thank you, Russ. Okay.
And thank you, Russ. And thank you, Russ.
Thank you for insulting us. Thank you for insulting us.
Yeah. And thank you, Russ.
Thank you for allowing the insults, Priscilla.
Yeah, thank you for allowing
Cheyenne
me.
Ryman, I am a Lower Saucon resident on Lightsville Road, and I do have a question, unless maybe I missed it. Did we announce that Mr. Gaduzian was going to be appointed the interim solicitor yet?
It's on the agenda.
Okay,
No, it hasn't been officially voted on yet.
okay. But that's how it was known publicly, correct?
Oh,
'Cause
absolutely.
it seems like there's a lot of things that are getting submitted to the public prior to the meeting. So people are showing up with comments on things that are not quite made public or even on the agenda, because I do read the agendas.
All on the agenda. It's all public, it's all transparent. And
Okay.
they knew it was on the agenda. They knew they had all the resolutions, the letter and all that stuff.
I just like things to be, procedure to be followed properly. And that would be making everybody apprised of information at the same time, instead of, certain people essentially spilling the beans to others, where there's a leg up for preparation and comment prior to that other people don't have the same.
That did not happen tonight because
Okay.
at every meeting, if you go on board docs or you go on the township's website,
Usually do, but it just seems, because there's sometimes I hear about things from,
follow along with us.
I hear about other people, that tell me stuff before it gets on the agenda. And it's kind of concerning as a resident and taxpayer.
May I be recognized?
No, we're done with, this is out of order. We're not following our agenda. So there's a.
What's the agenda? What is the
He's an
what is the
elected
order?
official.
I'm allowed to speak.
He's an elected
We're on an
official that's
agenda
allowed to
item. I'm
speak.
allowed to speak
You need
about
a
it. You
record.
can't stop me from speaking about
Seinfeld
it.
had their
Can
suit
we
Nazi.
call
I
the
guess we have a
roll,
gavel
please,
Nazi.
For the motion.
I'd
that's
like
on
to
the
correct
floor.
something Mr. Carochi said. The former solicitor who resigned actually lasted about 15 and a half days, Tom, not
Okay.
17.
I got my time.
Repeat the motion.
The motion was a motion to adjourn. Motion was by Mr. Bononis, second by Mr. Carochi. Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
No.
Mr. Bononis, how do you vote?
How can we have two solicitors at the same time and pay two solicitors at the same time? I mean, I guess the former solicitor was a phenomenal solicitor because he was able to do the work of two solicitors. This makes no sense to me. There's never been an acceptance of the resignation of Mr. Freed. And unless and until there is an acceptance of his resignation, there is no action to move forward on, hasn't been advertised, and what this council intends to do is in violation of the Sunshine Law. So I'm voting to adjourn. Yes.
Ms. Optoff-Kadera?
No.
Mr. Carochi?
I don't understand how if his resignation is not effective until January 31st, 2024, I thought our code calls for one solicitor, one council solicitor. How we have two now? If Mr. Goodshusian's appointed to an interim. So I don't understand that either. I guess it's par for the course for the way things are being run nowadays here. But I'll vote that we should adjourn.
That was a yes.
Yes.
Ms. Ray, how do you vote?
No, we're not going to adjourn.
Motion does not pass.
Okay, moving on with the meeting. We have the agenda item for appointment of the interim township solicitor, Resolution 34-2024 and Resolution 35-2024. Township received a letter from Mark Freed dated January 18th, and he says, "Dear Council, we believe it is in the best interest of both Curtin and Hefner LLP and Township Council that Curtin and Hefner LLP terminate its representation of Lower Saucon Township as Solicitor and Labor Council. Accordingly, Curtin Hefner LLP is resigning as a Township Solicitor and Labor Consultant effective January 31st, 2024. Then we also have in our packet the Resolution 34-24, Township's interim general civil solicitor schedule for 2024. Whereas the Council of Lower Saucon Township appoints Gaduzian and Associates with Stephen N. Gaduzian being the principal as the Township's interim general civil solicitor for the year 2024. And whereas the fee to reimburse the services of Gaduzian and Associates is a rate of $180 per hour. And the resolution goes on, now therefore be it resolved, and it is hereby resolved by the Council of Lower Saucon Township that the above listed fee is hereby established for the year 2024. And I believe what I'm going to do, Mark.
Make a motion to appoint Link Treadwell as interim solicitor.
Second.
What I was going to do is call for each of these resolutions separately. So we have a motion on the floor again. Can we do a roll call, please?
May I speak to the motion that's pending?
Yes.
Thank you. May I speak to the motion that's pending? Just going to look at me, or are you going to answer in the affirmative?
I don't know. How did it feel?
Are you going to answer that?
Sure, you can speak.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, so as to Mr. Reed's letter, it does not explain any basis for his resignation. In fact, we've never received any explanation for his hiring. There was no explanation that was ever provided for the termination of the longtime Lower Saucon Township solicitor. He'd been with us for, I think, about 23 years. Is that right, Tom?
Yes.
He represented the township in a balanced and nonpartisan way under both Democratic and Republican councils. But yet now, under Priscilla, Victoria, and Laura, apparently before two of them were even sworn in, they colluded to get rid of this great solicitor and instead put in place their handpicked selection, who didn't last more than 16 days. So what I find interesting is we have a mailing, and many people in the township probably received this. I think that this is Laura Ray, and I think this is Priscilla, and I think that might be Victoria. This is the mailing that came in. Saucon Valley Together. And it says, Lower Saucon deserves better from our elected officials. Voters deserve respect, cooperation, and transparency. Respect, cooperation, and transparency. So they go on and they say, stop wasteful spending on legal fees and unplanned projects. They will be a watchdog over taxpayer dollars, a watchdog. What about the wasteful spending of the revolving door of solicitors that we have? Am I speaking? May I speak?
Yes, you may have the floor.
Can you gain control of the room, please?
I am.
You use a gavel on us, not on them.
So they want to prioritize our residents' concerns, says we do not owe favors to any special interest groups. Is the Northampton County Democratic Party a special interest group? Tom, do you know?
Yes.
Okay. They want to foster transparency in all levels of township government, transparency at all levels, except for apparently the firing of a highly competent longtime township solicitor, hiring in secret a replacement for that solicitor, and then losing him in only 16 days, and now propping up somebody to the exclusion of everyone else. There's been nobody else that I'm aware of that has submitted a resume or a letter of interest with regard to this position. In fact, I don't think it's ever been advertised or posted.
It hasn't been.
And in fact, there may be more qualified people that are here, and I mean no disrespect to Mr. Gutsuzian, who's here with us today, but we just don't know that. So that's respect, cooperation, and transparency. That's Saucon Valley Together style, respect, cooperation, and transparency.
Okay.
I'd like to be recognized as well.
For Tom.
As I said, you know, Link would have handled that conditional use hearing last meeting with good advice to counsel about bias, about, who should be doing what, who should be running the hearing. He would have ran the hearing, which I think would have been to the benefit of Priscilla because of an allegation by a council member of bias, or not a council, of an attorney of bias. I asked our solicitor questions. He couldn't answer them, or didn't have the answer, readily available. We had no problems like this with Link. Link was a straight shooter, tell it how it is. Didn't play politics. For 23 years, he served both Republican and Democratic majority councils over those 23 years. And the reason why he wasn't retained is because Priscilla knew he would stand up to her when she was wrong, and she didn't want that. She wanted somebody she could bully. Someone she could strong arm, and she found, apparently, Mr. Freed. And Mr. Freed apparently lasted 17 days, 407 hours, 408 hours, 24,480 minutes, and 1,468,800 seconds. So he was obviously not the man for the job. Now we're on to the second an interim solicitor who I believe also is a politically biased candidate. And I hope he'll answer some questions when we get to it. I assume that's why he's here tonight, to answer some questions. And if you want to be hired for a $180 an hour job, I think the least you can do is answer questions from council members. But again, this was so Priscilla could strong arm a solicitor, hire the solicitor in secret, and now she's on to number 2 with the same thing. So all you need to do, Link was fine. When you were president of council before, Link was the solicitor, and you were fine with it. But I guess you're not fine with it anymore, apparently.
Hey, Victoria?
Thank you. First of all, I'll just say I do take exception to some of the characterizations made, but I'm not interested in engaging in debate. I will ask our manager, what was the hourly rate of Mr. Treadwell?
I think it was $220 an hour. I do not know 100%.
Thank you. And at least when I read this resolution, it looks like the proposed hourly rate for a solicitor is $180 an hour. So I'm really proud that we are moving forward in the things that we spoke about during the election. I am proud to be working with Ms. DeLeon and Ms. Ray, and I am ready to move forward.
$180, maybe you're getting what you pay for.
Your turn, Tom. Please respect.
Well, I want to be recognized again. There's no limit to
Well,
that.
I think it's interesting that we characterize our solicitors as being political and biased. I'm not sure how that was shown. That's not anything that I saw happen. I find it interesting that you accuse Priscilla of wanting to have somebody to strong arm and bully. That's exactly your tactics. Yes, you're hilarious. I know, you make me laugh. So, yes, we had plenty of different reasons. There was a lot of things said during our campaign by our citizens and residents of different reasons why they did not want to move forward with the solicitor. We are here to represent those people.
What were they? What were they?
Why a change was desired.
Do not interrupt Laura.
The only reason the other person left is because of the ridiculous behavior that occurred at the meetings so far, and we are ready to move forward.
Can I get clarification?
Tom, you are out of order.
Can I get recognized then?
No, we already went through one time, and we're
I can't have a second time. I'm
Hold on,
asking for a
hold
second
on.
time.
Where in our rule of conduct, you can say whatever you want. Where in our rules of conduct and the conducting of this meeting does it say it goes through one time?
Yeah,
Where does it
there's
say
no
that
rules
one time?
I request to be, as an elected official, I
I
request to
didn't
speak.
even go yet. Do you mind?
Yeah, as long as I can speak after you.
I'm sorry. So I will go, and you can say whatever you want. The record will reflect it. And with that, I'm going to have to open it up to the residents. And
After the residents, I would like to speak again. I'm requesting that as an elected official.
That's okay.
I looked up the records. Link's firm was charging $290 an hour. Link himself was getting $220. Mr. Freed was charging $180 an hour. Any thinking person would have to ask themselves, why won't Bononis and Carochi work with a new solicitor? What possible relationship with the previous solicitor existed that they could not have with the new solicitor?
We didn't make the new solicitor resign. He resigned on his own.
I sat here at a meeting, and you can go on and look at it, and you two harassed him the whole time, and one of the two of you, if not both of you, said, why don't you resign, or something to that effect, and he sat, it's recorded, Tom, don't sit there and shake your head. It's recorded, and he sat there and said something along the lines of, you're going to get your wish, or you may get your wish, because you guys harassed him that badly. And you sit there and say that he didn't answer questions, yet he answered questions. You denied he answered questions. You tried to rephrase it and say that he didn't answer the question. And he sat there going back and forth with Bononis for a while over. He said, I can't make it any clearer. It seems to me that Carochi and Bononis are the ones that can't understand.
okay, if there's no one else, then call the question, please. Call the question, please.
I request to
Call
speak.
the question, please.
I request to speak, and, listen,
You're not
maybe
being
you get for $180, you get what you pay for. Again, there's been no reason besides apparently a fee given by Ms. Ray. She said, or Ms. De Leon, or Ms. Optoff, as to why the previous solicitor wasn't retained. I know it's political, but they've yet to, they say, oh, there are reasons, but they won't make those public. So what about the transparency? What about the transparency?
The motion on the
And
floor.
what about the rationale?
I'm sorry to put you in
For
that
23 years, he was good enough for both Republican and Democratic councils. Never had a problem, but all of a sudden, this new council decided to get political and make a change.
Okay, please call the
Well, you
question.
can speak,
Motion on the floor is to appoint Link Treadwell as the interim solicitor. Motion was made by Mr. Carochi, second by Mr. Bononis. Mr. Bononis, how do you vote?
The motion is to appoint
Link Treadwell as the interim solicitor. Ms. Optoff-Cadera?
No.
Mr. Carochi?
yes.
Ms. Ray?
No.
Ms. De Leon?
No.
Motion does not pass.
Okay, now continuing with the motion, with the meeting, I already talked about Resolution 34-2024, and then we have Resolution 35-2024, which appoints him for the interim planning commission solicitor and the Environmental Advisory Council. Also in the packet was the letter of interest that he submitted for the $180. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Steve Gozizian, the interim solicitor for the general civil solicitor and planning commission EAC solicitor at a rate of $180 per hour. And that would be included in my motion to pass resolution -34-2024 and 35-2024. Would there be a second?
Second.
May be recognized.
Sure.
All right, Priscilla, with regard to how you're conducting these meetings and seeking to cut off Tom and I'm going to direct your attention to the administrative code in section 5-8 council, part F, meetings of council, subpart 2. At all meetings of the council, regular or special, interested citizens with legitimate matters to lay before the council shall be granted the right and privilege to address the council. The council may prescribe procedures for the citizen presentation to assure decorum at all times and to prohibit personal or insulting language, irrelevances, and harassment either on the part of members of the council or members of the assembly at the meeting. So you've been on council for 36 years. I would hope that you're familiar with that provision. I'm not asking you to speak. I'm not asking you to speak. All right? I'm not asking you a question, so please don't interrupt me. I would hope that you're familiar with that, and certainly I am a resident of this township. So is Tom a resident of this township. If you continue to try to prevent us from speaking at the meetings, we're going to have to take action to enforce the administrative code because you're acting in violation of it and preventing us from exercising our First Amendment rights and our rights under the administrative code to address issues of legitimate importance to this township, okay?
You can be brought apart personally, right?
I'm not done. I'm not done. I'm not done. And I will tell you, okay? So you don't have to ask me again when I'm done. I will tell you when I'm done, okay? So, as to the proposal for Mr. Gutsuzian, my understanding is this is not just a temporary interim role, but that this is going to be a permanent role, and I have some concerns about that. The concerns that I have is that this seems to not take into consideration what may be in the best interest of the township. Nobody else has applied for this job for solicitor. It has never, ever been advertised as far as I know, and the only publication of it was in the township's advertising for this special meeting that was not part of the regular calendar or agenda. So I believe, Mark, maybe you can answer this for me. Was the public ever notified that there was a need to hire a new solicitor?
No.
Were any other resumes or credentials received?
No.
Do you know why it is that we received only one name?
That was what we were given, and that's what we were, was told to move forward with.
Given by whom? Who came up with that name?
By other members of council.
So the other members of council, I presume, because it wasn't me, and I assume that it wasn't Tom, correct?
It was not.
So then was it Priscilla, was it Victoria, or was it Laura? Or was it all three of them in concert?
It was not all three of them in concert. It was, Priscilla gave me the name. I spoke to Mr. Gutsuzian, and we are looking to move forward with an interim solicitor to get some things accomplished that we need to do, and then we will get a right to know.
You may get a right to know.
Request for proposal
RFP.
out to receive resumes from other solicitor firms, to then interview them and move forward that way. At that time, Mr. Gutsuzian will be able to apply to the request for proposal. Mr. Treadwell would be able to apply for the request for the proposal. Any solicitor firm that can do solicitor work in the state of Pennsylvania could apply to be the solicitor, and then we would interview them and hire a solicitor, full-time, non-interim solicitor.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you sharing with the public for the first time that this all came about because this was hand-selected by Priscilla, just as Mark Reed presumably was hand-selected by Priscilla. So that eliminates the need for a right-to-know request. I will say this. I think this is a sham. This is not designed to identify the best solicitor to represent the township and its taxpayers, just like Mark Reed was a sham. We had a perfectly capable, actually highly capable solicitor who worked here for the township, and the three people who just got elected chose to get rid of him out of some political vendetta or agenda. And they have no shame about it. And I think the public should be outraged about that. I direct, and I would hope that the township residents that are concerned about this contact these three, contact their email addresses, contact them by phone, let them know how absurd this is and how incompetent it is. What they've done is unjustifiable, and I believe it's also a scam. And I think, you know, Mr. Gutsuzian, certainly a fine man and a competent lawyer in the areas that he practices in, has no business as a township solicitor. And when we look at his resume that he was kind enough to provide to us, he says that he was a solicitor for the borough of Northampton, the borough of North Catasauqua, and the borough of West Easton. So he also apparently does some work for police and water authorities, but boroughs are not townships. They're markedly different than townships. Lower Saucon Township, as a second-class township, is tremendously different. Northampton Borough is a total of 2.5 square miles. It's 1/10 the size of Lower Saucon Township. North Catasauqua is less than 0.75 square miles. The borough of West Easton is another small borough, and it also has a dubious distinction of its council president not getting billed for 5 years of trash pickup. Now, I don't know if Mr. Gutsuzian was a solicitor then. I hope not, that he wasn't. But from a legal perspective, the borough code is so much different than the second-class township code, and I see nothing in Mr. Gutsuzian's credentials that say anything about experience whatsoever as a solicitor for a township, first class, second class, or otherwise. So why then would I vote to hire a lawyer without experience in the very subject that I need him to represent this township? I don't want to pay for him to learn on the job. We had somebody who understood how to do the job. And to bring up the point earlier about the rate, I think Victoria brought this up, talking about what we paid Link and what was being proposed here for a solicitor. The difference there is Link deserved a premium higher than the $180. And the reason for that is because he could do the job more effectively and more efficiently because he had the institutional knowledge and the familiarity with the issues that face this township, particularly under the second-class township code. So that's why he deserves more. You want to pay a little bit more for somebody that you're actually going to pay. You're going to pay more on an hourly rate because the amount of time he's going to have to put into it is substantially less. So that just makes sense. You want to have somebody with the expertise that can do the job. So here's another thing. Mr. Goodsouzian is a solicitor that works for the borough of Hellertown, okay? The borough of Hellertown. So, excuse me, may I speak?
Oh, absolutely, you're speaking, I'm not stopping you.
He works for the borough of Hellertown. His services are paid by the borough of Hellertown. We've already gone through countless times in meetings. If you're not familiar with it, go back and look at the past meetings about the issues with the borough of Hellertown, okay? Putting that aside for the moment, Mr. Goodsouzian, ethically as a lawyer, cannot take on this proposed role. My position on that is under Rule 1.7, conflict of interest, current clients. Except this is the rules of professional conduct for those who aren't familiar. I'm a lawyer, Mr. Croce is a lawyer, Mrs. Optoff-Cordero is, Mr. Goodsouzian is. We're all lawyers, okay? We're obligated to follow the rules of professional procedure, conflict of interest, current clients. Except as provided in paragraph B, a lawyer shall not represent a client if the representation involves a concurrent conflict of interest. A concurrent conflict of interest exists if the representation of one client will be directly adverse to another client, or there is significant risk that the representation of one or more clients will be materially limited by the lawyer's responsibilities to another client, a former client, or a third person, or by personal interest of the lawyer. Notwithstanding, a lawyer may represent a client if the lawyer reasonably believes the lawyer can do so, provide competent and diligent representation, not prohibited by law, and some other things. So,
It's not prohibited by law.
I'm not, hello? The provisions of this rule, I believe, prohibit Mr. Goodsouzian from taking on this role. Hellertown, do you have a problem, sir? Do you have to keep waving your hand around? You have a cramped wrist or something? What's your problem?
You're not supposed to be attacking the resident sitting there.
Well, maybe he shouldn't be waving his hand around.
Maybe he has an issue, so just leave him alone.
Okay. Yeah, as if to hurry it along. I'm not done, sir. You'll know when I'm done, okay? You'll know. If you don't like it, go home. I'm not making you sit here.
You're not supposed to be, didn't you just read, what are you,
Yeah,
didn't
code
you
of
just read
conduct.
section,
Why don't you control the crowd? Why don't you control your people in the crowd that are carrying on and interrupting me, waving hands around to try to interrupt? And make a fool of this meeting. Okay, okay. So, Lower Saucon sued the Office of Commonwealth Libraries, Hellertown Library for denial of services, removal from Hal's area. The Office of Open Records already determined that Hal is subject to right to know because it's essentially an appendage of the Hellertown Borough. Hellertown Borough Council President Tom Rieger acknowledged this. He sent an email, and I went over this. I'll read the email to you now. I have it right here.
No, thanks.
Excuse me?
No, thank you. Sure we
Is this on
heard it.
topic?
Yeah, it is. Thanks.
I'm just curious, what it has to do with the motion?
So, I have the floor. Don't worry about it. I have the floor.
Lots of
Don't you
people
worry. You'll
have
have
the
your chance
floor,
to
but
talk.
some people don't like that.
Tell her to stop interrupting me.
Please.
Stop interrupting me.
Stop interrupting. Jason has the floor.
Thank you. So we got an email here, January 14th, 2022, Tom Rieger. This is an email with regard to the library. January 14th, 5:28 p.m., Tom Rieger from his hellertownborough.org email account. I had a phone call last night from Ken, I believe that's Ken Solt from the library. Council's direction is not to meet with LST, presumably Lower Saucon Township. So there he is directing how Hal is supposed to conduct themselves. Then we got another email here, Tom Rieger, October 7, 2022, subject LST Joint Ventures Correspondence. This is to Mike Corriere, their solicitor. Mike, do not send this. I'm going to call for an executive session when I get back to town. With the OCL granting a special exception, there's a lot of things in play. FYI, this is a bit wrong. LST granted Link the ability to sue the library, not the borough directly, but as it's primarily municipality, it's essentially against us and our residents' interests. So there he is acknowledging that as well. So Mr. Gutsuzian's client recognizes that the library is the same as the Hellertown Borough. Office of Open Records recognizes that, and there's litigation that's ongoing in the Court of Common Pleas on that point, where that very issue is established. So, Mr. Gutsuzian's, and the other one is, Hellertown Borough sued Lower Saucon Township with regard to the compost center. I believe that litigation is ongoing. So again, there's another matter where Mr. Gutsuzian's client, the one that pays his bills as the solicitor for the zoning hearing board, right? You put your time in, you get paid for your services. They're paying your bill, and yet somehow that's okay to allow you to be the to try to be the solicitor here. Now, I will say this. I've been practicing law for over 20 years. I cannot recall an occasion where I have contacted the disciplinary board about a lawyer, but the circumstances here may require that. And I certainly don't say that as a threat. I say that as a matter of fact, and to just put out there for full disclosure. The other thing I want to point out here is what I believe to be some familial bias for Mr. Gutsuzian. So there was a local blog or news site that published a letter that was reportedly authored by Lara Gutsuzian. She is the wife of Mr. Gutsuzian, and she noted in her letter that she was, quote, deeply disappointed in her local government, end quote, and also, quote, supported the actions of the Hellertown Area Library, removing Lower Saucon Township residents and herself from Hal's board. And here's the doozy, quote, as a board, we spent much of the past year trying to navigate an unnecessary combative relationship with Lower Saucon Township Council. I can assure you this, when I sat on council here, I cannot recall one instance where I was contacted by Lara Gutsuzian or Steve Gutsuzian or anybody in the Gutsuzian family with any concerns, not once. And if there was such a concern with the library, and this was such weighing on her for a year, why wouldn't she reach out? I mean, it seems sensible to me. I think that among the duties of a board member of the library would be to try to find ways to navigate through problems that are facing that and to try to build a consensus. But instead, it appears that she chose to pen a political hit piece. So not only do I believe that Mr. Gutsuzian has professional conflicts that significantly prevent him from representing this township, but I also think that he's a personal one as well because of the comments that were published by his wife directly adverse to the representation and interests of this township. So with that said,
Can I get a clarification there? Was his wife on the library? I just want a clarification. Was his wife on the library board, the Hellertown Library Board?
Yeah, his wife was on the library board. She was appointed by Lower Saucon Township to be on that library board. And presumably, as a member of the library board, your job is to liaise with the township to make sure that the township interests are being met. And among those things that we asked for were very straightforward things such as usage numbers, financial information, and other things, and why people who weren't on the board were supposedly voting for matters related to the finances of the board. So with all that I said, I would encourage Mr. Gutsuzian to withdraw his letter and his interest in this position. I do not want to be looking for yet another solicitor next week. We're now on our third solicitor that we're looking for. The taxpayers deserve better than that. I would also encourage council to re-engage with our former solicitor, Link Treadwell. Stop wasting everybody's time and money. Stop wasting everybody's time and money with this nonsense. You talk about respect, cooperation, transparency. Why don't you start now? I mean, you've been in the job for, what, 24 days, 23 days? Start governing. Figure it out.
Thank you for your respect and cooperation.
Hold on. Hold on.
Did you?
I am now done.
Okay, thank you. And I guess what I'd like to say.
You're going to speak? I'd like to be recognized. Go ahead, after you.
Wait, I thought you had your turn already on this.
Not on this motion, I didn't.
First. Okay, go ahead, Tom.
No, I'll wait for you. You were going to speak. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm the chair. So you can go next.
Okay. I'd like to ask Mr. Gutsuzian some questions. Can you please go to the podium?
Is that mic on?
Have you You have a firm. Have you or your firm ever represented Crin Industries or landfill?
Trin?
Trin, yes, Trin, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, and what was the nature of those representations?
Various legal matters.
Anything more specific than that?
Not that I should be disclosing as their attorney.
Anything, I mean, if there was a public court case, you can certainly disclose that.
I've been involved in litigation with Trin, yes.
Okay, well, to the public nature of that, please tell us the public nature of that.
There's public record.
Court proceedings, an open court, you're in open court, it's not secrets, please tell us the nature of those.
There's various items, including an estate issue, chasing of debts in the sense of people who hadn't paid, various other things.
Anything landfill related?
No, they normally, for the landfill, they have special counsel for the landfill. I have represented the landfill on some business matters from time to time, but I don't do any of their environmental work. I don't do any of their expansion work. I don't do any of their regulatory work. They have people for that, just like I presume, lots of people do.
So you also want to be our EAC solicitor, so you don't have any environmental experience either?
No, I do want to be your EAC solicitor, just like your normal solicitor would be, yes.
But what experience do you have environmental issues? You said you don't handle the landfill issues for sure.
I do not handle the landfill issues for sure.
So what environmental issues do you handle? Have you handled in the past?
Not of any great, when to specialize, I don't handle them.
But you want to be our Environmental Advisory Council solicitor?
I do.
And you don't have any experience in that?
I've already answered that question.
Have you served on any other EAC committees?
I have not.
Okay. And you've never worked as a solicitor for a township, is that correct?
Well, actually, I have. What I listed in, and I'm doing this primarily for the members of the public, as indicated in my resume, I'm the solicitor for the Borough of Northampton, the Borough of North Catasauqua, the Borough of West Easton, Slate Belt Regional Police, Portland Water Authority, the zoning hearing board solicitor for the Borough of Northampton, not the regular solicitor, the Northampton County Controller, and then our firm represents Bethlehem City Council, the assistant solicitor for Bethlehem Township Planning, the zoning hearing boards of Washington Township, Wind Gap, Moore Township, Bushkill Township zoning, and Upper Mount Bethel. What I did not include in that is years ago, and because ran out of space, years ago I was also counsel for Forks Township. Their regular solicitor was Carl Klein. I was their alternate solicitor. I represented the township, which is a second-class township, much like Lower Saucon. Represented them at various meetings, represented them in litigation, represented them in litigation where developers went and attempted to go ahead and develop certain areas that went up to the Commonwealth Court and so on. So short answer to your question, yes, I have represented a township.
Right. In the article that Jason referenced, your wife stated or wrote that she was integral in changing the bylaws for the Hellertown Area Library. Were you intricate in changing the bylaws for the Hellertown Area Library?
I think you're referring to a letter that my wife wrote.
Correct.
Yes, my wife wrote.
Is she an attorney?
She's not. She's
Okay.
a PhD.
Right.
She's a molecular biologist.
Right. So did you work on the bylaws for the Hellertown Area Library?
I was not on the
No,
committee.
but that doesn't mean I asked you, did you work? I know you weren't on the Hellertown Area Library Board. Well, listen, they're bylaws. Sometimes when bylaws need to be changes, they seek legal advice. An entity would seek legal advice. I'm simply asking, have you done any legal work for the Hellertown Area Library?
I
Assist in their bylaws.
I don't think I did. My wife may have asked me questions over time that would be normal, but I certainly was never hired by the,
Right.
that's what
But
you're
you
asking.
may have had a undisclosed role in advising your wife on those bylaw changes.
I'm not sure. My wife may have asked me. I'm sure my wife at times asked me, but I didn't play an official role in any capacity.
Thank you for your honesty there. Have you ever represented St. Luke's?
No,
Ever represented any of their employees?
I don't think so. I mean, potentially out of some other non-St. Luke's related matter, for example.
You may have in non-St. Luke's related matters.
Right. For example, let me give you an example. Somebody comes in and says, I need a will.
Right.
They may work at St. Luke's.
Right.
Something along those
But
lines.
what about in employment matters with St. Luke's?
I don't do that type of employment work where I'd be suing employees or employers rather.
All right.
So no, the short answer is no, not that I can recall.
All right, so who contacted you last week about the solicitor position?
Ms. DeLeon.
Ms. DeLeon, okay. And how do you know Ms. DeLeon?
I barely know Ms. DeLeon. I don't think I actually spoke to her for more than 10 seconds before last week.
How did she get your name?
I don't know.
Okay. You didn't ask?
I mean, I don't know.
Did you ask?
I don't think I did.
Okay. Let me see. Do you know Ms. Optoff? Right. Did she ever come to you for assistance in the defense of a defamation lawsuit brought by Bononis, Carochi, and the Zavaki campaign?
Number one, that's inappropriate because I'd be commenting on somewhere where I was the attorney, but to short circuit this, no.
Okay. You've never had a conversation with her about it?
No.
What about Michael Shea?
Who?
Michael Shea, an attorney, I believe his name is Mike Shea. Mike Shea, is that his name?
Have I ever spoken to another attorney named Mike
About
Shea?
that defamation lawsuit.
I'm sorry, I gotta understand your question. You're asking me
Yep.
if I spoke to another attorney about litigation relating to Ms. Optoff?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. All right. Let me see here.
It's like more.
If your work on the Hellertown Zoning Hearing Board, you've conducted hearings.
This is the Hellertown Zoning Hearing Board, yes?
Yes, yes, okay. So you feel confident conducting a conditional use hearing, for example, for the township here?
I do.
Okay. Now, have you ever, in your time as solicitors for all these entities and the Hellertown Hearing Board, advised a participant, like a council member or a borough council member, to recuse themselves from a conditional use hearing or any hearing? Have you ever?
Okay, I think you're confusing things. I am the Hellertown Zoning Hearing Board Solicitor.
Correct.
And I think your question was, have I ever told a council person? So I think what you mean was, did I ever tell a zoning hearing board member? I think that.
Well, but I also want you said you're a solicitor to some boroughs as well.
Right, that's why I didn't understand your question.
Both, everything. How many times do you recall having to advise somebody to recuse themselves from a hearing for a possible conflict of interest? It's a basic situation.
Yeah, but I think you're not understanding the question.
No,
that you're trying to
I
ask.
understand the question.
If you may, let me finish. Let me finish. Because what you're asking for is normally the way it works is for a recusal. Mm-hmm. The person who is in the position as to whether or not they should recuse.
Right.
Sir, please. The person that is in a position as to whether they should recuse is the one who makes that determination. Mm-hmm. They make a determination as to whether or not they can act appropriately. Right. I have in the past, if your question is, have you advised? 1 second, sir.
It's a simple question.
And yet you're not letting me answer it.
You're not letting him, this is
Refuse
what
to answer.
tonight.
Go ahead.
So what happens is, it is the decision maker of the council person or the board member or the borough council member or zoning hearing board member to make that determination. Have I advised them as to what the rules are and so on as they make that determination? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you don't think there's any conflict with you being an interim solicitor here with your work in Hellertown?
Okay, let me answer that. So to be clear again, I am the zoning hearing board solicitor for the borough of Hellertown. Mm-hmm. The zoning hearing board just recently, by way of example, took an adverse position to the borough of Hellertown, meaning they were in litigation, they were actually against each other. So I do not feel that that would be a conflict of interest, number one. Number two, when you do have a potential conflict of interest, one of the ways that that's addressed is you have other counsel representing you. And from what I understand, at least in one of the litigations, there's other counsel representing the Lower Saucon Township with regard to any litigation regarding the library, which is tangentially involved with the borough, from what I understand. That being said, even if that was a potential conflict, it can always be waived, meaning that both parties can say, I'm comfortable with this, and that can be addressed at a later time. So the short answer to your question is no, I do not believe there's a conflict.
You don't believe there's a conflict, okay. All right. And I served with your wife on Priscilla, we served with her on, what do they call that committee to hire the police chief?
The search committee for the chief of police.
Right. And she was also on the Water Authority, I believe, when I was on the Water Authority?
I don't know that.
Okay. All right. Do you think there's any conflict with you being a resident of the township? Like, Mr. Treadwell was not a resident of the township. So, you know, he wasn't paying taxes, property taxes to the township and all that. And you are a resident of the township, is that correct?
I am.
Okay. How long have you been a resident of the township?
2008.
Right. Okay. So, you think there's any conflicts that can arise from that? I mean, you know, you'd be advising us, council, on litigation, tax rates, a landfill that's basically a third of our budget, that could lead to tax increases for all residents, including yourself, if you own property in the township, which I assume you do. Do you see any conflicts in that?
I do not. Plus, as you know, the solicitor doesn't vote.
Well, you don't vote, but you advise on litigation, correct?
Correct. But back to your question, the answer is no. I do not see that as a conflict, that I'm a resident of the township.
Okay, and it wouldn't shade your advice at all?
It would not.
All right, well,
May I ask you a question, Mr. Gutsuzian?
It's Tom's turn.
well, I mean, Jason can ask a question. There's no limit. Go ahead, Jason.
So, Mr. Gutsuzian, you bring up that issue about conflict, or actually, Mr. Croce brought up the issue of having a conflict because you're a resident of the township. And I can recall back probably 15 years ago, when I was the chair of the zoning hearing board, you came before the zoning hearing board with an issue at your property, and I'm not gonna say where it is. And if actually might have been two issues. One was with regard to a religious group that was going to take a clubhouse and convert it into a facility for religious activities and meetings. And you spoke up very strongly against that because it was some distance from your home. And the other thing that I recall, I believe, I'm trying to remember here, was an issue with either trees on your property having been cut down or trees on a neighbor's property having been cut down. So there are two matters that I can think of off the top of my head that you were before Lower Saucon Township, and you had a personal interest in those. I'm not aware, I mean, certainly like Mr. Croce pointed out, Mr. Treadwell was not a solicitor. You're a solicitor to all these other municipalities, these three other boroughs that you don't live in. I'm not sure how you reconcile that, because you yourself may have interests based upon decisions that are made by this council. Your family may, your friends, your neighbors. I'm not sure how you resolve that. And I understand you may not have anything presently at stake, but the peril of that seems to be very substantial to me. And I think we should have somebody who is not a resident of this township so that that person does not have any appearance of bias or impropriety. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I disagree with your statement. With regard to the two items that you identified, the first one was we did not oppose a religious organization in any capacity.
I may have misunderstood.
That's understood, but if I can clarify, what we did was there was a potential commercial use utilized, and myself, as well as my neighbors, opposed that, and we came before the zoning hearing board to that. That was not a religious organization in any sense. Ultimately, it became a religious organization to which we had no objection to. But that clarification aside, I do not see it as a conflict that I will be living in the township and serving as interim or otherwise solicitor. And it's quite similar to members who are sitting here as township residents and also serve on here before you as township supervisors. Each of you have an interest.
We're required to be residents.
Pardon me, sir.
We're required to be
Pardon me,
residents.
sir.
The solicitor is not required to be a resident.
Tom, you're interrupting.
But it's that same type of analysis that every time you choose to either raise taxes, reduce taxes, make a decision, you're potentially involved and could potentially affect you one way or another. If and when those circumstances arise, there's a process. And if and when that circumstance ever arose with me, there's the same process.
So your suggestion, if I'm understanding, is that when that situation arises, we got to go find somebody else?
If that situation arises, it can be addressed just like whenever you run a township, there's going to be situations that nobody can anticipate is going to happen, whether it's a month or a year or 10 years from now. And when it does, you do.
Yeah, like when a neighbor is putting up a cell phone tower and you're not in favor of it, that's a situation that would
That is,
potentially trigger it.
you are identifying a situation that could happen to anybody on this council. Sure, absolutely. And the argument would be, if we're gonna talk this through, the argument would be certainly the people who are on council would have a more vested interest because you guys can actually vote on it compared to someone like me who can't vote on it, or your engineer who can't vote on it, or your zoning, you're the person who serves as, on behalf of the zoning hearing board as a staff member or otherwise.
I appreciate your answers. I appreciate your candor. I appreciate your interest in the position. But again, I think that the multitude of actual and/or potential conflicts suggests very strongly against this. And it's nothing personal against you, sir, in any way.
So we have 3 other council people that need to speak. You guys gone more than once. So Victoria?
Go again if I want.
Thank you very much. I apologize, I put a candy in my mouth during that time. I would like to say that I appreciate seeing the information before me. I think it's very interesting, and I think the public should recognize that we sit in a situation where we are faced with facts that are beyond our control, and we are faced with people that we don't have control over behaviors. And I can't, and I don't think anybody can force anybody to do anything, but I do hope that we move forward in a spirit of cooperation. And I hope that all of our council can work towards the idea of actually allowing our government to function. And I think one of the main items about fiscal responsibility is making sure that we use our time diligently, we use our staff diligently, and we move forward so the township can function. I don't think that creating situations that would be difficult for our staff to operate in or for any consultant to operate in is in the best interest of our residents. I think having a solicitor is a very important thing for our township to have. I think appointing somebody immediately is imperative. It's important for our township to be represented at all times for events that we have, again, no control over when they occur or how they occur. So to delay any appointment of any staff member, and especially the important position of solicitor, because we would like to do an RFP and ask a lot of interview questions and call to the entire state of Pennsylvania solicitors the ability to come forward, I don't think is responsible. I think the responsible thing is to appoint somebody immediately, somebody who has the qualifications and the ability to move forward. I appreciate all the answers that Mr. Gazouzian gave to Mr. Carochi's questions, and that gave me even more confidence in making sure that we move forward in the right direction with representation. Thank you.
Okay, Laura?
Okay, I don't have anything so fancy to say as all that, because I'm the only non-lawyer other than Priscilla here.
She plays
Yes,
one on
I don't
TV.
see how we could function without a solicitor. We have regular township business to attend to. It's unfortunate that the solicitor that we had appointed resigned. I don't think he realized how things worked here with all the chaos and craziness that happens here that we can't control. But we do need a solicitor, and I'm thrilled that Mr. Gazouzian is willing to step up and at least help us out for the time being until we can sort things out. But we need somebody, so I'm ready to move forward.
Okay, and I'll go last. I would just like to say, unfortunately, Mr. Benonis wasn't listening to my introductory paragraph when I read out of the administrative code. about the meetings of council and that these apply to members of council and members of the General Assembly. And also, Mr. Blasco read the exact same paragraph. That's unfortunate, but I'm very thrilled to be here, to have you here and able to jump in and help us out at this time. And I feel that you are qualified to do it, or I wouldn't have proceeded to the manager with it. And so with that.
Can I have a clarification? Can I be recognized for a clarification?
Already went 3
But
times.
I can go with clarification. This is my second time, and I can go again. There's no limit on that. I just wanted to clarify, our current solicitor is not resigning until January 31st. So when would Mr. Gasuzian start if he's approved?
I believe it would be, I don't know, we have to put a date. I'll amend my motion to say effective tomorrow.
Okay, so we'd be paying 2 solicitors then between now and January 31st?
I don't see it that way.
Why not? The resignation is not effective until January 31st of 20.
I'm amending my motion to make it effective tomorrow, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's,
Second the
well,
motion.
Second the
it's,
motion. Amend your second.
so we're gonna have 2.
Or seconded.
You seconded it.
And I also want to correct, you said you approached the township manager. You approached Mr. Gasuzian directly, according to his testimony here. He said you called him.
Absolutely. And then I
So yeah, but you implied that you somehow took his name to the township manager, and then that's how it went. But you called Mr. Gasuzian directly.
I did call him directly, and
Let me clarify that. And clarify the point that there's no limit to the number of times a council member can speak in any code.
I'm not hearing you. You're mumbling again.
Okay?
I heard you, Tom.
I know. I didn't hear her. She's mumbling.
All right, may I speak again since you amended the
Yes.
motion?
Yes.
Sure.
All right.
Amended the emotion.
So, the question that hasn't been asked, Mr. Gasuzian already explained that he was contacted by Priscilla, and that's how he submitted his resume. But Priscilla hasn't told us how she got Mr. Gasuzian's name. I'm assuming she didn't just look in the yellow pages, and I guess that question will be left to history.
Can I answer?
Yep, if you feel free, yeah.
Absolutely. I thought of all the solicitors that I knew, and I made contacts with them, and I asked them if they could provide recommendations for a solicitor for the township because ours had resigned.
So who was the solicitor that identified Mr. Gasuzian? Who are all these, among all these multiple?
Are you interrupting me? Can I finish?
I thought you were done.
I-
I was saw
no,
the floor,
I
you
will tell
interrupted
you
me.
when I'm done.
You interrupted me with a question, go ahead. Tell me when you're done.
So, I made some phone calls, and I had met you, at the induction of the, Brian Pinella's, induction at the courthouse, and we had met, and I went, oh, he's a solicitor, and he was on my list to call. And he was very receptive to my phone call, and I took his information, and I passed it along to Mark. And then they spoke, and we put it on the agenda. We needed a special meeting because I felt as council president, did not want to be without a solicitor, and we did not have a meeting between now and February, I never remember, is it the 6th or the 7th? The 7th, and in order to have somebody in place, we needed to have this special meeting. So that's why I took the action that I did, and I'm finished now.
Okay, so what I've just established, I think, with that question is your first answer that you gave to me was that you contacted all these solicitors that you knew, and somebody who you won't tell me or won't tell the public recommended Mr. Gasuzian. And then that story evolved, don't interrupt me, please. That story evolved into you're at Judge Brian Pinella's swearing-in ceremony, and you saw Mr. Gasuzian there, and you recognized him as being somebody that does second-class township solicitor work?
That's not what I said.
Well, it sounds like the
Too bad
story.
we don't have a tape to be played back.
We do have a recording, but you don't have to interrupt me because I'm not done. So here's what I would point out. The administrative code for Lower Saucon, section 5-12, officers and employees, A, township solicitor. The solicitor shall be a person or firm learned in the law and in active legal practice in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I will agree that Mr. Gasuzian is an active legal practice in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I will disagree, though, that he is learned in the second-class township code. And that's no disrespect to you, sir. You may be a fine solicitor to boroughs and to police departments and authorities, but what we have here is different than what that is. The other part that I would point out is subpart 5, the solicitor shall furnish legal advice and opinions to the council, the manager, the chairman of any committee of the council, and to all officers, departments, boards, and commissions on any matter in connection with their official powers or performance of their official duties. And therein is where I have the problem because of the conflicts that I talked about. Conflicts with Hellertown Borough because of your representation, personal conflicts because of your wife's positions that she's taken with regard to the library, conflict because you're a resident of Lower Saucon Township, and may deal with matters that are of relevance to you and those that you know. So that's all I have to add. Thank you.
Recognized again. Priscilla, you still didn't name the actual solicitors she contacted to get Mr. Goodsouzian's names. I'd like to know who they
I
were.
just went on the record previously, and I said I was at a public function. I was introduced to him, and I went, oh, he's a solicitor, and I called him. No one told me to call him. I did that on my own.
No, you said he was, you talked to other
I
solicitors and
did,
his
and no
name
one
came up.
nobody had a recommendation.
Oh, nobody had a recommendation.
Not that they got back to me in a timely manner, no.
So who did you
Pinella used to work-
contact?
Brian Pinella used to work for you, right, Mr. Goodsouzian?
Brian Pinella yes, Brian Pinella worked for my office.
Yeah.
Brian Pinella ran for judge. Brian Pinella then successfully ran for judge and won. Brian Pinella then had a function where he was sworn in. It's a ceremonial function where he was sworn in as judge.
Sure.
At that ceremonial function, either at it or following that function, I saw Ms. DeLeon and spoke with her. That, I believe, was the first extended conversation I ever had with her. And when I say extended conversation, it may have been 5 minutes, it may have been 10, but that's when it was. So in response to Mr. Carochi's question of when did I meet her and for how long, that was the first time I had talked to her for more than 10 or 15 seconds ever, as far as I can recall.
And Brian Pinella's still on your firm website, isn't he?
Probably because we have not taken the steps to take him off the website, but he's now a sitting judge.
I know that, yes,
So,
I understand that.
yes.
Again,
He will
I
be shortly. When we
asked who did Priscilla contact to get recommendations, and she won't provide any solicitor names.
No, I won't, and I'm comfortable with where we at tonight.
Okay.
So, this isn't a trial.
Were there other lawyers, obviously, at Judge Pinella's swearing-in ceremony or his celebration? There were probably a lot of lawyers there, right?
I'm sorry, are you asking were there other lawyers at a judge's swearing-in
Yeah,
ceremony?
I
I don't know if you were there.
I wasn't there, but I mean, I just want the public to understand, there were lots of lawyers that were there, right? You weren't the only lawyer that you could have spoken to about this. There were plenty of lawyers that Priscilla could have approached and said, hey, I need a solicitor.
If your question is, were there other lawyers that Judge Pinella swearing in? Of course there were other lawyers that Judge Pinella swearing
I
in.
know it's an obvious question, but.
Okay.
I did not know about the resignation of our solicitor that day.
Then why'd you ask for solicitor services?
I'm not commenting anymore. It is what it is. You change words, and I'm not going to be subject to that. I'm sorry. So it is what it is. I already said it. You can go back and listen to the tape. So with that, I'm going to ask for a roll call.
We didn't have public comment yet.
We've already had public comment. How many times during this agenda item?
Not for this agenda item. Not for that motion, we didn't.
No, the motion that I made earlier was to
Anyone out
adjourn.
there that would like us,
What's
like
the
to
motion to
speak on
adjourn?
this, or can we proceed with the vote? Just raise your hand if you want to speak again. Okay,
There we go.
very good. Thank you.
There it is.
You're welcome.
Government at work.
Andrea Witchen. It is ludicrous that a single agenda item has now consumed almost an hour and a half. Secondly, I'd like to ask Mr. Banonis, in his concern about ethics, what does it say about lawyers who deliberately lie? Doesn't that affect your ethical status? You and Mr. Carochi have both lied tonight using the word that Link Treadwell was fired. He was not fired. His appointment expired on December 31st, 2023. There is no rule in any book that says a township is required to continue with the same solicitor from year to year. That appointment is available every year to every township council, and they may make those choices on their own. He was not fired. Secondly, many residents felt that Mr. Treadwell was not nonpartisan, nor did he represent the interests of the community, particularly regarding the excessive and expensive legal fees that he incurred in relation to the library situation, including when you and the previous council gave him carte blanche to do whatever he wanted to resolve the library's situation, which included enlisting the firm of Eckerd Siemens to subsequently sue the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania because you claim that the Office of Commonwealth Libraries did exactly what you requested Hal to have them do. I don't know where that falls under the lies department, but it definitely falls under the fact that your statement that Mr. Treadwell represented us for 23 years in a nonpartisan manner is not exactly representative of those of us who have locked horns with Mr. Treadwell over the years. And in fact, many of us were delighted to see him leave. Thirdly, the First Amendment that you wanted to wave around before also applies to husbands and wives. Wives are not attached to their husbands, nor are they required to mimic the opinions of their husbands, nor are they not required to take actions that are in compliance with what their husbands
You
want
have a
to
husband
have
because you're
happen.
speaking as an expert.
Excuse me, you're interrupting me.
Okay.
Fourth, Mr. Carochi's question about whether Mr. D'Souzian has ever represented St. Luke's employees is as about as stupid and wasteful a question as I have ever heard. At the moment, St. Luke's University Health Network employs 17,000 people. Do you honestly expect Mr. D'Souzian or his law firm to know off the top of the head if they have ever represented any of those 17,000 people, nor is it germane to our discussions here? And then finally, Mr. Bononis, you wanted to know why Mr. D'Souzian's wife did not contact you with her concerns about the library and the problems that were happening with the library. Why would anyone bother to do that? When we know
Because they're on the board.
that you don't reply to emails that are sent to you, or when you do, they are replies of the nature of, thank you for your opinion. When I want it, I will give it to you.
Why don't you read the rest of the message too? Read the whole thing.
I don't have the message here because I know it in my head because it was so egregious and so snotty and so inappropriate for an elected official to respond to a constituent in that way. So I don't need your answer. It was a rhetorical question. As a lawyer, you should understand that. And Carochi spit them out all the time. You don't really want the answers. You just want to make points.
Sort of like Saucon shenanigans.
I have a right to publish that, and I have a right to say what I want in it.
Yes, you do.
Yep.
Free country. I do too.
And that's why 30,000 people have read it. Thank you very much. And I hope that we approve Mr. D'Souzian.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
I would suggest that I probably represent more people in this township than either of you two. In addition, I recommend that we approve Mr. DeSouzian tonight. I appreciate his willingness to jump into the fire here, and I think that will buy us time to find additional solicitors. I will say that when the slate was elected in November, I immediately got in touch with a number of people in a number of townships with whom I have relationships and asked them if they could make recommendations for solicitors based on particularly those boroughs and townships that are dealing with the excessive building of warehouses and also have dealt with the difficulties of dealing with a landfill or a dump, what it really is. I think that is simply something that an interested and concerned resident has every right to do, to find out who is available to provide services for the township in which they live and in which they are passionately invested. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Who wants to go next?
Happy New Year. Hello again, Bob Blasco, 2510 Reddington Road. Mr. Bononis rudely walked out when the proposed new solicitor was answering the questions that Mr. Carochi asked. He has had experience with townships. I just would like you to know that, so you can go home and go to sleep this evening.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay.
I was listening.
So this is a quote, I'll read it. General Business and Developer Meeting, November 16, 2022. I find it interesting, if not ironic, that your concern over conflict of interest is only presented when you oppose what's happening. In this conversation, Ms. De Leon said, and this is talking about the landfill, by the way. Mrs. De Leon said, who is going to pay the salary for the solicitor? Mr. Bononis said he's our solicitor, so he thinks we would pay for our own lawyer. Ms. De Leon said in the past, dealing with landfills, her experience, they would have the landfill reimburse us. Mr. Bononis said personally he would rather have us pay for our lawyer as opposed to having the party that's interested in the outcome of those discussions pay for the lawyer. Not that he's impugning, he says here imputing, but links credibility or honesty. But he thinks he's most loyal to the party that's paying his bill. And he's always been our solicitor. So he's perfectly fine with the township paying for it. Mr. Carochi said, same here. Attorney Treadwell said the way we have typically done it in the past with the landfill type projects is he works for the township. He submits the bill to the township gets reimbursed from the escrow account that the landfill has established. So landfill does not pay him directly. I guess indirectly is okay. The township pays directly. The township pays him directly. The township is reimbursed by the landfill from the escrow account it established when it filed the application. That's how it works. Mr. Bononis said that works for him. Interesting.
Thank you. Anyone else, Ginger?
Mine is short and sweet. Ginger Petrie, 2626 Reddington Road. All I want to say is that as we watch some of the behavior going on, all of us in the audience are reminded of when we were in school. And when we were in school and a substitute teacher used to come into the classroom, all of a sudden, all the good students behaved, wanted to be nice to the teacher, and wanted to help the class move along so we could all learn. And all the bullies used to do was cause havoc, raise hell, and disrupt the class. So I just want to say that all of us in the audience are witnessing the same thing we went through when the bullies in high school used to act out. The only thing I want to say at this point is the audience requests that you move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that then, the motion on the floor is to appoint Mr. Gaduzian as our solicitor based on the resolution I referred
Oh, it
to.
was an interim. I thought it was interim.
Interim, sorry, I did say that in my original motion. I'm just paraphrasing. And there was a second, and could we have a
It's
roll call?
resolution 34 and 35, interim solicitor of Mr. Gazouzian. Ms. Aptoff-Kadar, how do you vote?
I vote yes with the proposed amendment that you had suggested that his effective date be tomorrow. I would think that you added that at some point.
Question, are we doing each resolution
No,
once?
you did them all together.
All together, okay, that's what I thought.
Mr. Croce, how do you vote?
I need clarification then. Is it interim for all, then EAC and,
Yes.
it's interim for all?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think there's a political bias here.
Ms. Ray, how do you vote?
I vote yes, as amended.
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis, how do you vote?
No, for the reasons I've already stated.
Motion passes 3-2.
Okay. Congratulations, Mr. Gudouzian. Would you like to come up here and take your seat?
Your motion is tomorrow, not today.
Yep. Motion was for tomorrow, not today. Good. Thank you.
We hope we're not here tomorrow.
Okay. You're correct, Tom, I did. Okay, then moving on then, we have council and staff reports.
Before we move on from that agenda item, may I raise a point? Thank you. There was a special meeting that was called because this matter was so pressing and urgent to the township. I already pointed out earlier that there was no acceptance of the resignation of Mark Freed. I would ask that the township manager place on the agenda for the February 7, 2024 meeting acceptance of the resignation of Mark Freed, even though it post-dates the date of his self-imposed resignation. The other thing that I would ask that the township manager place on the agenda, which is striking to me why it's not on this agenda, Mr. Gudouzian was just appointed as the interim solicitor because there are pressing needs, allegedly pressing needs to the township, but yet there's no agenda item to direct the township manager to advertise for a permanent full-time township manager. So I would ask that that also be placed on the agenda for the February 7, 2024 meeting so that we can authorize that action and have the township manager proceed to try to identify somebody appropriate as a full-time township solicitor. I'll make a motion.
You can't make a motion because it's not on the agenda with the new sunshine law rules.
Well, I guess it doesn't have to be a motion. It's just a request to the township manager. He indicated on January 2nd that he's the one who sets the agenda. So now it's been put out there for the public that hopefully he will agree and place those items on the agenda. And if not, then we can discuss at the February 7th meeting why those items have not had any action.
Yeah, I'd like clarification on that. Because in a phone call, Mr. Hudson told me that he, or that Ms. De Leon had final say of the agenda item. So why can't we just have Priscilla, if that's the case, agree to it?
Well, I brought that up, Tom, at the February 2nd meeting when you weren't here.
January 2nd.
I'm sorry, January 2nd, you were unavailable. And I brought up that question as to who's the one who sets the agenda. And, you know, I pointed out that, you know, prior council was vilified because we actually would require 2 council people to put an item on the agenda because for any item to move forward needs a motion and a second. Otherwise, we're just wasting everybody's time. And, you know, there were complaints that were made that that was not sufficient, that everybody should be able to put whatever they want on the agenda at any time. And in fact, what this new council seemingly has implemented is something more restrictive than what had existed. And that is that one person, namely Priscilla, as the council president, would have the sole authority in placing those matters on the agenda. And I asked Mr. Hudson about that and how that would operate. And he said that he's the one who sets the agenda. So you bring up a good point because it seemed that it was, you know, the township council president, Priscilla, who would be the only person and the sole gatekeeper of all items that this council will hear as an agenda item.
Can we get some clarification on that from the 2 people who are here, Ms. De Leon and Mr. Hudson? Can we just get clarification on that? How does an agenda item get on the agenda? And what if Jason has an agenda item like these? How would he get them on the agenda?
To send the request to me, the manager is supposed to work with the council president to come up with the agenda. The manager sets the agenda, and then the agenda will be placed out.
Who has final say? Ms. De Leon or you? Question.
Administrative code.
Simple question. Who has final say?
Manager as the, I guess the manager.
What do you mean you guess the manager? It's either you or Priscilla. Who has final say?
I do.
Priscilla, do you agree with that?
I think our administrative code says the manager sets the agenda and
So you agree with that?
I don't have a problem with Mark.
Okay.
Put something on the agenda,
Yes.
doesn't mean it's gonna pass.
I didn't say it's gonna pass. I said we're talking about getting items on the agenda, not whether they're gonna pass or not. No one's said anything about that.
Will you accept my
about this on-
verbal
on
request
January
during this
2nd,
meeting
I thought.
tonight to have those items on the agenda in lieu of a written request?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, are you finished now?
For the moment.
Okay, moving on, we have council and staff reports. Township manager, Mark, would you have anything for the?
The only thing I have to say is that the Black River Road culvert project, we got it to a point where we were able to open the road. It is remaining one lane, so you still have the stop sign. And that's just due to the guardrail is not in place yet, so we need to slow traffic down. And it is a stone surface, since we cannot blacktop during snow. So Black River Road is back open. There is no weight limit. It is one lane for the time being, and we will get back to it as soon as possible. Our public works crew will get back on it as soon as possible to open that road up completely. That's all I have.
Okay, moving on, council reports, Jason?
Yeah, I received some messages from Lower Saucon residents who were interested in the proposed, the instructions that were provided to Township Council to prepare an ordinance to rezone Easton Road from light manufacturing to R40. And this is one that I received from Melissa Miranda. Hello. Please hold on pushing the change for Easton Road zoning until such time as the new solicitor has an opportunity to become acquainted with all concerns. For the record, I respectfully request the council to leave the new zoning as LI/LM alone and not to revert to residential, and will prepare more appropriate reasoning for a future meeting. Thank you, Melissa Miranda. And I also received another one from Denise Van Buskirk. And she says, hello, council members and manager. My name is Denise Van Buskirk, and I live at 2268 Easton Road. I bought my home in 1999. I've lived through the white light dust and the MFS stink where the EPA shut them down. I would say that I would rather live through that again than what we are dealing with now, 2 exclamation points. I was at the meeting last year when it was voted to change to LM. I was ecstatic and relieved. Unless you live here, you have no idea what it is like. I'm very interested in knowing who is complaining about it being changed back. I am too. I was never asked during the campaign of my opinion. I live directly across from Eastern Industries in Pando. Eastern Industries was tolerable, however, Pando is not. The highway behind us is louder every year. There have been several fatal crashes just a few yards behind us. The truck noise is atrocious. They retard down the mountain and it shakes the house. The truck traffic on Easton Road since the industrial park went in across the street is ridiculous. It's dangerous. Many times when putting my grandkids on the bus, the trucks had to abruptly slam on their brakes to stop in time. They've backed up on the road because they missed the entrance. Super dangerous on this road. How many times have they come down Ringhofer and damaged the bridge trying to turn onto Easton Road, not to mention the closure of the road because of it? I was on a Zoom call with the city of Bethlehem maybe 3-4 years ago with Mrs. DeLeon and a few other residents. They had no answers to the traffic increase, the noise increase, and said they were going to do a decibel reading from the noise at Pando. It was never done to my knowledge and has increased since then. Mrs. DeLeon has not been truthful when discussing this Zoom meeting. However, she asked about a traffic study and it was done before the other building went up. It was done with the intent of Cherry Lane increase, not us. No one fought for us when they were building the industrial park here, and now you want us to be stuck in a no-win situation, 2 exclamation points. I've had several inquiries on my home, and as soon as they hear the sounds that we deal with, our property values plummet, 4 exclamation points. I have audio recordings of the train at 1 a.m., the noise of the towers sucking their plastic beads through the metal lines and tanks. I have ringing in my ears from this. You can't open your windows or enjoy the outdoors with the noise, 3 exclamation points. The train comes at all hours and it blows its horn right outside our house. It shakes the house worse than the trucks on 78, 4 exclamation points. This is unacceptable, exclamation point. Almost all of the neighbors in this immediate area are on board with getting out. The ones complaining don't live up this way. They live past the plant and by the church. They don't get the noise like us or the traffic or trains, 2 exclamation points. Keeping this LM does nothing to the ones that don't want to leave. They are still residential and don't have to sell if they don't want to. It does nothing to their property taxes. It changes absolutely nothing for them, but gives them more options to do things with their property, 4 exclamation points. However, changing it back traps us that one out into losing value and having to deal with this noise and trapping us in a no-win situation. The offers that are being made are fair and reasonable and a lot more than we would get in the market with this crap that is happening here. In conclusion, do the right thing, the common sense thing, leave it as LM, 2 exclamation points. Changing it back will only hurt those of us wanting to get out and can't without losing our shirts in value, 2 exclamation points. It does absolutely nothing to those that want to stay other than give them options. Sincerely, Denise Van Buskirk. So just wanted to share that because I assume that that item is still in the works, and I think council needs to hear from our residents. I don't know if they receive similar messages, but I think it's important for residents that can't attend the meeting be heard on that issue. And I also wanted to thank Officer Hance, who just stepped out for the moment. I appreciate him being here for the duration of the entire meeting. Oh, he's back there. I'm sorry, he's back. He is back. I think he stepped out. I want to thank him for being here for the duration of the meeting. We appreciate what the police do. We thank you for being here to provide public safety and security.
Okay, you finished?
Yeah, I'm done for now. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to have 2 comments. I do recall a Zoom meeting a long time ago about the incidents regarding the issues on Easton Road, and I believe the administration was supposed to work with the city, and I don't ever know what happened to that, so I don't know. But also that years ago, when the industrial park was first developed, or approved, I should say, by the city of Bethlehem, and I'm talking years ago, the township wrote letters and attended meetings and told the city that we do not want any entrances to any traffic on Easton Road. The road was not built for truck traffic, and that the in and out traffic was supposed to use 412, and that was sent to the city of Bethlehem. And I do remember that because I fought for that. Now, in the interim, the city did not do that. So, not the city of Bethlehem. But with that, Tom, do you want to go next?
Sure. Mark, it's my understanding there have been some right-to-know requests that have been submitted to the township. I have not received anything regarding that. Were you going to send out so council members can look?
It's been very specific, and you have not been named in those
Okay.
requests.
So have the other council members received a request to look for documents?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And how are we looking with those deadlines?
It's going to be tight.
Okay. Well, thank you for all your hard work on that. As far as this rezoning in Easton Road that Jason and Priscilla commented on, it's a perfect example of Mr. Goodsuzian being on the Hellertown zoning hearing board and working for Hellertown when the Democratic majority here is talking about rezoning Easton Road. It's a neighboring borough, and there's a conflict. And I hope it's not rezoned. I think we open ourselves up to a lot of litigation if it is, because these people are getting offers for their property that are above market value, and they're going to go away if it's rezoned. You know, I guess, you know, Priscilla says it's the, you know, it's Bethlehem, and she's right to a certain extent. It is, but you know, she and the council member at that time believed them and took their word for it. And you know, we're kind of suckered there. And now these poor people's property values have declined over the you know, the previous years, and you know, this is an out for them. This is an out for them that they deserve. So I hope council will not take that up and just leave well enough alone, and keep going with that. But again, I think it's another conflict for Mr. Gudsizian to have to work through. So, how did you fight this, though? You said you fought the Bethlehem Township or you know, the warehouses there. How did you fight that?
Well, I didn't fight the city, I didn't fight Bethlehem Township, it was the city of Bethlehem.
Right, so how did you fight
The council at that time made a motion and sent letters to the city telling them, you know, like when they were reviewing the land development. I mean, I'm talking the early 90s, forgive me, I have a really good memory, but
Right.
I don't remember the specifics about that. But I do know that letters were sent to the city because we did not want anything going on Easton Road. But they had the right to develop their site.
Right.
And put the warehouses in or whatever, but we had asked that all traffic would go the other way. So there'd be no truck traffic on Easton Road.
Mark, have we received anything from Bethlehem regarding the rezoning that took place on Easton Road? On our part, our township?
No. Not that I remember.
Okay. All right. All right, that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you. Victoria?
Thank you. In the interest of time for our residents, I will hold my council reports to our regularly scheduled meeting on the 7th.
Okay, thank you. Laura?
Yes, I have no report.
Okay, and I'll go next. I'm looking forward to working with our new solicitor, so see you next time. And with that,
Interim.
I guess
interim
we can't ask you anything about a solicitor's report because not tomorrow. The engineer is not here. Public comment, non-agenda items. Was there a list that went around, or are we just opening it up? Okay, so go ahead, Rick. You're the closest.
It's Frank Palumbo, Kings Mill Road. I find it interesting how the minority council seems to be so preoccupied about this rezoning and how it's affecting their property value. And yet, the night that they passed that, this place was packed with people in total opposition. So they only want to listen to and cherry pick to their benefit, the people who are, and I understand and I sympathize for those folks too, but the landfill affects a lot more people here. And a lot of people come to these meetings all the time, including myself, because I want to protect this township and my own property value. But the minority don't seem to give two craps about the greater amount of the population here that is impacted by the landfill. And it affects not just this township specifically, because if the wastewater ends up into the Lehigh River and then subsequently down into the Delaware River, this affects millions of people. But yet they don't seem to give two craps about the greater good of the Pennsylvania population and the immediate Lower Saucon residents. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, I forgot to mention something during my council report. May I have the floor again just for a moment? I just wanted to notify those who are present and those who may be tuning in remotely. I had learned this week that the Saucon Valley School District has begun discussions about their budget for the upcoming school year, and they are projecting to have a $2.5 million shortfall. And the effect of that is there is a statutory cap as to the amount that they can raise taxes, and that if they were to max it out by increasing taxes to the maximum level permitted by law, that those taxes that could be raised would be $1.4 million, which will result in a $1.1 million gap. I say that because obviously it sounds like your school district taxes are going up, and this council has made efforts to increase your municipal taxes. even though we have $9.5 million in the bank. So consider all of that as the upcoming meetings take place. Thank you.
Okay, and I'd just like to say that the taxes will be 5.14, the same like it was for whatever. So your taxes are not going up. We are increasing the fire tax because I was never in agreement of lowering that. So, and I think everybody here wants to have their house protected if there's a fire. I don't think anybody would have a problem doing that. So, okay, right, Cheyenne, I think you were next.
Do you want me to reintroduce myself?
I can't hear.
Can you hear me now?
Tilt the mic down.
Sorry,
Make it
I'm short.
comfortable.
Cheyenne Ryman, Lightsville Road. In regards to why that was brought up about Easton Road, I don't think it was a personal choice between Easton Road or the landfill. I think he was speaking because there was an email sent from one of the residents. So to get that out of the way, I think that's where it came from. That being said, I do want to approach you guys, and I have a tall order. I ask that it be received with a totally no partisanship involved. That was the platform that you guys ran on. And I feel in the first meeting that was kind of just blown out of the water initially. Everything from every appointment, everything was one-sided. It was highly, highly criticized when it was going the other way. However, when it happened at the second meeting, January 2nd, that was okay. I don't think it's okay either way, if they do it or if you guys. So I would ask that you keep that in mind. In regards to Easton Road, I will speak on that. I have had contact with several of the residents through the developer that does want to pursue the parcels. My request for asking for this to be nonpartisan is because I feel like there's an approach currently where it's the orange man bad syndrome. So anything that was presented with the previous council is immediately shot down because it was bad. And I don't feel like that's appropriate. So I have a question. How many meetings were attended during the discussions with Bethlehem when they were planning the warehousing across the street?
Want me to think back to the 90s?
Sure.
I'm sorry,
Were there meetings like physically attended where these things were discussed? I'm just curious.
Sure, I physically attended them because I went to many Bethlehem meetings.
Okay. My other thing is during the campaign, you said you ran across several residents that asked that it not be rezoned. So right now it's currently LM. So when I talk about rezoning, I'm talking about taking it from the current zoning of LM back to R40. Has there been consideration given to what that actually means for the residents as far as property values, what that does for their current quality of life? If you're not sure, I can certainly remind you. Because of the intense industrial development that's happened across the street, it's going to affect their values because an appraiser is going to look at it and say it's an economic obsolescence. So immediately, it's going to be received with some opposition. Aside from that, you have marketability. At the end of the day, people are going to show up. They're going to see warehouses across the street that are already there. It has nothing to do with what's being planned on this side, whether it was a flower shop or mom and pop coffee shop. There's still that across the street. In the meeting minutes from April 15th, 2020, which was a Zoom meeting, there was a resident that lived at 2294 Easton Road that stated they have their house up for sale numerous times, almost had it sold until they saw how much truck traffic and noise was going on and backed out. That woman, Miss Kinsey was her name, also stated that they lost 2 sales in this house because of the monster craziness across the street. In the meeting minutes from March 22nd of this past year, 2023, Michael Yelovich, who's a current resident on Easton Road for over 30 years, stated that he said his house had already depreciated because of all that, meaning the stuff across the street. Denise Van Buskirk, who's a current resident of 2268 Easton Road for 25 years, stated that she has had people come look at her house. They said they want to live here. Who would want to live here with that going on? Frank Sweat, who is also a resident of Easton Road for quite a long time, stated, so if you're unhappy with your house, sell it. It's going to sell. The only problem is that you've given somebody, or you've decided that the change to an LM area, that now people have found it desirable to purchase these properties. So inherently, you have somebody that is fighting to keep his house. He clearly said he does not want to move, but has identified that changing the zoning to LM does increase property values. There's also an email from Michael Yelovich, who is not able to attend tonight, but he did email me and asked it to be read into record. With permission, may I do so?
How long is it?
It's short. It's short. I'll keep it brief. So he sent me an email today at 5:39. My name is Michael Yelovich, and I reside at 2306 Easton Road, Bethlehem, PA, 180515. And I would like to enter my comment into record that I do not want council to change zoning back to residential. At first, I was opposed, but no longer want to reside here because of the noise, truck traffic, and warehouses across the street. You should let the residents have the choice of selling to developers or not, and stop putting our lives on hold. Thank you. That was in response primarily to not knowing what's going on. So these people have wanted to stay or made decisions to leave and are now being upheld largely because of the zoning issue. That's going to change their situation. In regards to just affecting property values, it's also an impact on the quality of life because of what's currently there. Taking out any conversation of zoning, what's happening across the street is just affecting these people. Patricia Howells, that resides at 3880 Mockingbird Hill Road for the last 40 years, could not be present with us this evening, but asked me to read her comments into record. She's had to install security cameras on her property. In regards to her wish for the zoning to stay LM, her quote was, "They should leave it as is. They already allowed the area to look terrible. The moment that they allowed the dump and the moment they didn't fight the industrial park across the street. This area is ruined, garbage, tractor trailers, strange people walking along Easton Road." In the meeting minutes from April 15th, Ms. Kinsey, who is the former resident I referenced before at 2294 Easton Road, said, "We live on Easton Road directly across the street from these monster buildings that were put up. You want to talk about quality of life? It's not there. We have a spotlight in our bedroom and our living room every single night, and those warehouses don't care. 24 hours a day, you have trucks going by honking their horns. You want to talk about quality of life with our people? Think about the residents in the area that are already here. You want to talk about trucks? She would ask that you come out in the middle of the night. They're there 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. There is no quality of life." Folks, that is a direct quote from those meeting minutes from April 15th of 2020. In meeting minutes from March 22nd of 2023, Joanne Mason, who's currently a resident on Easton Road for over 30 years, said, "We have been subjected to the tractor trailers. She's had 18-wheelers turning around in her driveway." Janet Riley, who is not a resident of Easton Road, did state, though, that she lives right across from I-78. She can't open her windows. She can't sit outside. Barriers put up, no sound barriers. She'd like to invite all of you to come to her house, spend a night at her house, as her windows shake and her house shakes. Tom Engelman, who also lives on Easton Road, says since I-78 has gone in, that disrupted the whole community there. Gordon Fiegel, another resident on Easton Road, said highway is one thing, as their house shakes so bad. In response to Gordon Fiegel, he asked several questions about burning on his property, having a shooting range. Link Treadwell said, all this does is change the zoning designation of that property that would allow you, if you wanted to do that use that's permitted in LM, to do that. But do you want to keep your house? Then you keep your house. That's the way it works. Highlighting that is important to know because it does not change the fact that these people can stay in their home. What it does is it increases the possibility if they do want to vacate, whether it's now or later, they could potentially get a higher value selling as a commercial use as opposed to residential, given the nature of what's happening there. Another quote from Michael Yelovich, again, he made a quote in there that said his house shakes like crazy. Denise Van Buskirk also said screeching with brakes, truck air brakes, speeding, loud exhaust, all hours, sometimes 3 shifts, 7 days a week. You're not able to open your windows. You're not able to be outside. I-78 noise gets louder every year. Trucks that come down the hill on I-78, their brakes are unbelievable. Kathy McGovern Pitchell, who's also not an Easton Road resident, said, Easton Road is an overburdened community. They have too much noise, pollution, they have too much light pollution, they have too much traffic, too much diesel fuel. It's an overburdened community. Brad Snyder, who is an Easton Road resident for 20 years, said it did have a country feel 20 years ago. I-78, you heard it, but it was somewhat quiet. His noise has tripled since Bethlehem put their crap across the street. He would be in favor of if everyone gets bought out and they can move somewhere peaceful again, but that's not in his hands. Folks, could you imagine the equity in your house being held hostage by a municipal council, who none of which are directly affected? Please consider what you're doing to these people. Carol Riley Rice, who is not an Easton Road resident, said there's bright lights, there's loud noise, you can hear the music that the people are playing inside the warehouses and their house, in Carol's house. Not only can you hear the traffic on I-78, the racing, like someone said, especially motorcycles, and the brakes coming down the hill.
Okay, do you have much more because you've already taken up way past 5
Ms.
minutes.
Witchen received a.
She went way
10
beyond 5 minutes, but
went
I will
over
wrap
10
it up respectfully. In opposition to the water and sewer, that was one of the concerns that Ms. Optov Cordero had noted. One of the residents there did contact, he said, the Bureau of Water in Bethlehem, asked if there was a possibility they could bring water. They said yes, it would cost $85, and the residents would basically have to pay the cost to have that run. So I don't see if they could run it for a resident.
Could you start about the water again?
Yes, well, I'm trying to talk fast because I'm getting cut off. So Tom Engelman, who is a resident of Easton Road, and he was not at that time in favor of selling, did say that he got in touch with the Bureau of Water in Bethlehem and asked if there was a chance they could bring water out to their property, as Easton Road is a state highway, and he's sure you know that. Whoever he spoke with said you have to abandon your well, and he said it would cost $85. He said, how can that be? They said they shoot a torpedo under the road and bring it to your house. So, in response to not having public water and sewer, that doesn't reference sewer, but certainly in regards to water, it sounds like it would be an option. So as far as that opposition, I think that might be easy to overcome. In regards to the zoning change, it's still subject, any plan, I'm hearing a lot of static in the back and it's distracting me from the audience.
Get up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
In regards to any plan that's submitted, I hope everybody is aware and remembering that it's not carte blanche for a developer or whoever to come in and just set up a building. There's still oversight. Section D of Chapter 180-102 outlines a site plan review and standards of review that says site plans may be modified and conditions put on approvals when deemed necessary to meet the following objectives. Those objectives are safe, adequate, and convenient vehicular and pedestrian traffic both within and without the site, protection of environmental quality, landscaping of open space, and harmony with existing development. So in my opinion, which we all know what those are like, residential doesn't fit in harmony with the existing development. I'll also highlight that the geometry of the parcels does not lend itself to standard warehousing that people think. So when you're talking about taking it to LM, which warehousing is part of that, there's not a runway. The depth of the lots do not permit it to house a warehouse like people are thinking is across the street, or like you think of when you typically think of Macungie. Warehouses do require fire lanes all the way around. They require truck courts and a bunch of other things. You can't get it on the site, and you can't create land with land. Has anybody, I'd be curious to see if anybody has explored what warehouses require and what that footprint might look like, because I think what people are picturing in their heads is not the reality of what we would be dealing with here. I'd also...
Council, I did consider that when I voted to rezone, and I understood that the site configuration would not allow for the warehouses like we see in LVIP and other places with millions of square feet.
Correct.
Thank you for asking that.
Sure. One other thing is the tax implications to the township. So I would be curious to see if anybody's done a study to see if the use change from residential to commercial, not the zoning, the use. So if zoning changes, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if the zoning changes, somebody stays in their house, taxes shouldn't be impacted. But when they change the use to commercial, so if somebody takes that house and says, I want to open a flower shop here, that would change the taxes. What you do with commercial is you add to the tax basis, specifically the school district, without a burden on the use. So you're basically just enriching what's already there. I would have a question for the new interim solicitor. If that corridor of Easton Road is a main, and he doesn't have to answer, but I'd be curious to know if that's a main artery to and from his house each day. The only reason why I would go there with it is I would be curious to know if that would be impactful in your decision-making or advisement towards council being a resident. And I mean that with the most respect, just something to consider. I do have another proposal that if you want to secure the property value for the residents, approach them, make offers to them, buy it for open space. Best of both worlds. It's really the best use there. Everybody says they want to maintain the cemetery and the ball field. And I personally feel having a transient use, such as visiting a cemetery or children playing ball and going home, doesn't impact a quality of life for people that live there 24/7. But if that's going to be the argument, make them offers, buy their property, preserve it, make it open space. And I have one last thing, and then I'll let you guys go, and I appreciate the extra time. Can we please get somebody to dust the beams in here? Because it drives me absolutely nuts.
I didn't hear what you said.
The beams. I stare at it every week, and it drives me crazy, or every other week, it drives me crazy.
When I was sitting for a planning commission meeting, I noticed that too.
Stop staring at it, and I'm like, I need a poll. But thank you for your time. I hope everything is considered, and thank you for the extra time.
Priscilla, may I be recognized to clarify something there that she said? May I be recognized?
May.
Okay. One of the problems with open space money is you're only allowed to offer appraised value with open space money. And it's my understanding a lot of these property owners are getting offers above appraised value as an incentive. So it could be tough to compete with open space money against a developer, as it always is. Doesn't matter where the property is. So, thank you.
Okay, anyone else in the audience? Yes. Your name for the record then, please.
Denise Van Buskirk. I've been talked about a lot here tonight. I have a couple audio recordings that I would like to play for you. That's a train. There you go. He's right out front. This is what it sounds like when they love to blow their horns. And this is about a quarter of a mile to a half a mile down the road. This is what I'm hearing in my house. Okay? Now, if I have it here, pretty sure I do. This is the beads being sucked up into those towers across the street from me. Do you hear that? Now this is on low volume. Do you want to live there?
Beads, like B-E-A-D-S?
B-A-D-S, plastic beads.
Okay.
Pando is a manufacturer of takeout closures. They build plastic things. Now, not only did they only have 4 of these towers when they first opened, they added 4 more when the Bethlehem approved 100 to 150,000 square foot addition. The best thing you ever did was change it to LM. It gives me the option to get the hell out of that because I deal with it every single day. That train that I just recorded for you came through at 1:15 a.m. My grandkids live upstairs in the apartment upstairs. They have school in the morning. How do they rest when their bedrooms are in the front of that house with that train coming through 3 to 6 times a week after 11 p.m.? It's not right. No one is affected by this rezoning if they don't want to leave. Nobody's coming around forcing us. Nobody's saying sign it or you're going to regret it. I got what I considered a fair offer for my home after I was turned down for $150,000 less. Somebody offered me $125,000 for my property because of the noise. Would you do that? Any one of you is welcome to come chain yourself to my porch and listen to it. Let's see if you want to live there. Now, the conditions we've talked about, the effects for those that don't want to sell. They don't have to sell. It doesn't affect them. The values of the property everybody has talked about. Now, about your taxes, okay? If I'm not mistaken, last year, this council that was in play wanted to reduce our taxes.
We actually
correct?
did. We did. We approved a budget that reduced taxes.
Okay. They also said they didn't want to increase any other taxes because you had an abundance of overcash left in the till.
We had $9.5 million in reserves, which would be more than sufficient to run the township.
And what about the fire department? Didn't they have over $1 million left in reserves?
That's correct.
Okay. So now my question is, you work for us, correct? You didn't like the way you were treated last year when that council was there. And the first day in office, you did the same thing. You're no better than them. You're no worse than them. You're all the same. You work for us, not yourselves. Got it? You ran on a campaign of bipartisanship and working together. It has not happened yet. And it's not just their fault. You want to be the better people, don't you? Isn't that what you said last year?
Yes, ma'am.
Nobody came to me and asked me what I thought. I'm a registered Democrat and I didn't vote for you. Because I knew if you took over, this was what was going to happen. It was going to be the same crap, only a different party. There is no parties anymore, people. We pay for you. You work for us. So start working for us, not each other. Thank you.
I'd like to say at this point, we have not done any changes with the zoning on Easton Road, and we haven't discussed it. We're not anywhere near being able to discuss it.
You did discuss it at the first agenda.
Yeah, well, because we want to revisit that topic, because it does not have to be an all or nothing
It's not nothing, because it doesn't affect anybody that doesn't want to sell.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you.
Don't listen. It's okay.
Yeah.
My name is Krista Buss. I also reside at 226 Easton Road, and I'm also talking about the rezoning, because you did mention it at the first meeting. And rezoning it to anything except LM would put us back. Okay? We have signed contracts already with legitimate, awesome values on our houses. With that signed contract, since you rezoned, I have over $10,000 already put into a house. Another house. Because this was said and done. So are you gonna pay me back the money that I'm dishing out into another house? Because I highly doubt you are.
You should sue.
I will. And I guarantee the neighbor next to us, who is already living in his new house and is currently paying 2 mortgages, will also be suing. Because see, you already rezoned. You already rezoned to LM, which put this in motion. It gave us our out. I have 3 children. I have 3 children who can only play in our backyard because our front yard's too dangerous. I have dogs that can only go out in my fenced-in backyard because I can't walk them on our street. I have to get in my car and drive minimally 2 miles down the road to a trail or a park or something like that just to be able to take them out on a leash, because Easton Road has no sidewalks. And 10, 15 years ago, I could walk them on Easton Road. However, since then, I have lost 3 dogs to that road, and one of them, I watched them hit my dog, and my son was 2 inches away from that car because the dog got out of his dog run. So enough is enough. We want out. LM affects nobody that does not want to move. It gives them more options. They can run a business off their land. They can sell it later on if they want. It doesn't affect them. Why fix something that's not broken? It's not. It gives us the opportunity. So my request is to just sit back and think about it. Think about it from our aspect. Come see. I mean, you know my address. Come visit me.
Yeah, I want to clarify, it does affect some people because they're saying there's going to be more truck traffic. So people like our new interim solicitor would have a little more truck traffic on their rides home. But I'm with you. I'm for leaving it the same. We changed it for a reason. I voted for that change.
Yeah.
And
well, those
we
that
need to
want
help
to
the
stay,
people
it
out
won't
that got
affect.
screwed by Bethlehem.
Yeah, those that want to stay, it won't affect their
also
property.
did some work for Bethlehem.
It might affect their commute,
yeah.
but not the property.
Right. Well, we have to worry about his commute.
Yeah.
We don't want to ruffle any feathers.
But I mean, that's that. It's time to, and I mean, in all honesty, just put all your feelings with each other aside and think about us. Don't think about it because it's what they did and you want to reverse it. Because that's what I'm afraid of at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Can I be
Ben
recognized?
Buskirk, I just need to address a comment that was directed to you by Ms. Ray. She said that council hasn't done anything, and that's not an accurate statement. So at the January 2nd, 2024 meeting, Township Business Item Number 9, letter B, authorize staff to prepare an ordinance for council's review amending the zoning map for an area of Easton Road to change the zoning from LM to R40. So at that meeting on January 2nd, only 3 weeks ago, This council, I didn't vote for this, and I think you know that, but Priscilla, Victoria, and Laura Ray voted to authorize township staff to prepare an ordinance for our review at a subsequent meeting to amend the zoning map to change it from what's currently LM to R40. So that was not accurate that nothing was done. They directed staff to undertake that they started that process. I just wanted to make sure you understood that, because what Ms. Ray said was they didn't do anything yet, but they have. Yes. Okay.
Ms. DeLeon, may I be recognized?
Yeah, sure. Well, we're in public comment.
I just wanted the opportunity, first I wanted to say thank you to all the residents that came out. I think it's imperative to hear from all of you, and I appreciate you spending the time to come, and I am very, very sorry about the noise, and I appreciate hearing the noise that you provided tonight. So that's the first thing. I want to say that I am listening to you and I'm hearing you. The second thing I just want to clarify is when we authorized the staff to prepare an ordinance on January 2nd, there was also, part of that was to discuss how we could put harmony with the various things that we have going on. And I think I specifically had indicated my concern was warehouses, and I asked, and I think it was part of the motion, that we look into how we could adjust the uses in that area to accommodate the desires of some of the residents that you, including you, have come and would like to see more variety, along with the other concerns that were noted. But I will also say that the process, like that's the first process, is to ask the staff to look into preparing an ordinance. That doesn't mean that the ordinance is going to look exactly the way it used to look. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to have additional meetings in which we would discuss and go over the various pros and cons. And I just want the residents to know that in no way, shape, or form am I interested in doing something because other people on this council also want to do something, and we want to just do an agenda for ourselves. I happened to attend the meeting back in, I think it was March or April of 2023, and I did witness a lot of people that were concerned, and some of them may have changed their mind. I think you might have read, Ms. Ryman might have read at least 2 people that may have been there in March or April and expressed their dissatisfaction with changing to LM. And maybe they have changed their mind, and that's good for us to hear that somebody has changed their mind. But I want you to understand that when over the last year, when I had been going to people's doors, I may not have been at your door, and I'm sorry that I wasn't, because I would have loved to meet you and hear about your concerns. So I'm really sorry that we never did get a chance to meet, but I can promise you that I was speaking to people that lived in that corridor and that they were concerned. And I remember the meeting, and that was something that we wanted to bring up because we had heard from people. It wasn't my individual desire to go out and do anything. I think that my job, my responsibility is to answer to all of you. And so this process, including you coming today, is part of it. And so I don't want it to be an adversarial thing. I don't want you to think that any part of this is like me versus you or you versus us or any of that. It's all a process. And part of that is listening to you. So I thank you. And I want you to stay tuned to see what else comes forward. And we can work together as a community. Thank you.
And to follow up on what Victoria said, it wouldn't be a once and done vote. We would have series of meetings to hear from everybody so we can make educated decisions. So thank you. Okay, next, your name for the record, please.
Matt McLaren, 2198 Riverside Drive. I just find it interesting now Mr. Bononis is interested in what citizens think about zoning decisions that have to do with their homes, because when he railroaded that zoning decision through with the former solicitor, you know, it wasn't a good idea. And I can guarantee that that will get thrown out in court in no time. So that's my point on that. And I hope other residents who are going through zoning changes have a little compassion towards us too on this end of things, because It's not right what they did to us. But on the other hand, as far as zoning, unless this council feels like there was something wrong with the municipal planning code or how the zoning change was actually done, I would say do not flip-flop the zoning. It's not something that should be flip-flopped that easy. There was no citizens that, I don't think there was any objectors to the zoning change. No one went to the zoning hearing board with any kind of objection to it. So, they had their due process, and it's tough, but from what I heard here tonight and just the overall process of it is that, what happens now when the landfill zoning gets thrown out? Because it's gonna happen, whether Mr. Bononis thinks it or not. Is the next council gonna come here and try to flip-flop it the whole time? That's not the way land use should work. That's not the way the MPC should work. That's not the way any of this should work. And we learned the hard lesson when they took out the conditional use, took out our voices out of the whole process and everything else, Who was informed of that decision? Who made that decision? Were you involved in that decision, Priscilla?
I voted no.
Yeah. And how did that even come up?
I wasn't aware of it. It was
Did-
on the
did-
agenda.
Did anyone grill Mr. Bononis or Mr. Carochi about that, where that came from? Someone should. Do this same crap they did here tonight. Someone should have, that whole time. No, they need to stop this. Exactly. Because honestly, if everyone, this room should be empty. These meetings should last 10 minutes. That's the way it used to be. It's ridiculous.
Robert Blasco, 2510 Reddington Road. To the lady that spoke of the noise concerning the transferring of plastics, I'm familiar with that. I worked for a while in a plastics factory. That's 4-inch aluminum tubing. It's got rifling in it, and that stuff does sound off. And it's usually transported up and across the rooftop. So yes, that is very noisy. There's no doubt about it. One thing that came out in what the one lady spoke, she said that some people, one of the letters I believe it was that she read, some people that don't want it changed live at the other end. Are they that isolated one end from the other that perhaps you could leave the zoning for the people that want to sell, but turn it back to residential for the other end? If the areas are that isolated, I don't know, it's just a question.
I'm sure our solicitor will discuss spot zoning.
Can you talk about spot zoning? Maybe he doesn't understand.
About the Easton, it was okay to spot zone a couple acres for the landfill though, wasn't it?
Go.
Okay, anybody else? If,
Hi, my name is Annette Keck, and I'm just here to say on a different subject. I sold the property across the street from Giant, and I'm proud to say that there is possibly the doctor's office is going in there, and I'm very proud of that. As an elderly person, knowing that there might be offices a little closer to me, that I'm proud of that. It's a lot better than having another bar, another pizza place enter Hellertown. So that's all. Thank you.
Well, the concern there is that they often don't pay property taxes if they own the St. Luke's Toast. So, I agree with you, not another pizza place or a bar, but at least those places do pay property taxes. That's a concern.
Mark Ozimek. I don't remember the dates, but I was here for the rezoning of Easton Road. It's on YouTube somewhere. And Tom Engelman, I worked with him, I know him and I talked to him. And at that time the room was full because people didn't want it rezoned. Maybe a few did. There were 2 or 3 people that spoke that wanted it rezoned. Maybe you were one, I don't remember. But like I said before, and I told Treadwell when he was here, if it isn't gonna change your taxes, don't worry about it. It's a benefit to them for those that want to do something with their house or those that want to try and sell and get out. But really no change as far as, you know, whether they're living there and it's LM or whether they're living there and it's the other one, whatever it was. So that's that. You got to be logical. You got to think. And as far as the school district being whatever they are in debt, let them thank themselves for that problem. They should have quit the lawsuits like you guys should have quit the lawsuits. I told you when you took office, don't lie and be honest. And if residents have an issue, go out to their properties and see them and visit with them. They're the ones that put you here. Not everybody's going to agree on everything all the time. I have a lot of disagreements. Be glad you're not the walls of my house. I'm telling you. So, do another Easton Road meeting if you want. Invite all the people out and let everybody give their opinions. You'll find out who changed their mind. You'll find out who didn't change their mind. And that side of the road, correct. I know the road. It isn't big enough for the warehouses that are across the street. But it will give some of the residents an opportunity to, I want to fix cars, I want to make motorcycles, you know. Hey, maybe you can get a pot store in there. I mean, government's doing great on selling pot in New Jersey. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there's no one else, then is there a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Croce, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Ray? Yes. Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis?
Yes.
Ms. Alpaf-Cadera?
Yes.
Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Thank you.